Okay. Good evening. Welcome to school committee for June 16th, 2014. This is our last kind of regularly scheduled school committee meeting before we go to summer schedule for the summer, for July and August. First thing I'd like to do before we start with the minutes is welcome back Carol Falvey, our newest school committee member.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so we'll start with approval of minutes. We have minutes from June 2nd and June 3rd, our joint meeting. So could I have a motion to approve the June 2nd minutes, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the June 2nd, 2014 minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we have minutes of June 3rd from our joint session with the selectmen. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the June 3rd minutes with the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes, quick heads up, a good catch by Carol O. On page 2, Andy Ayer, on his 5th sentence, we misspelled cited. We'll change that to the proper spelling, C-I-T-E-D.
What part, where is it?
Second line of Andy Ear discussion,
Okay.
cited Cisteron.
The homonym.
No.
Oh, okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for sharing the thing.
Yeah, no, they were very, very well detailed. Terrific. Student communications. We have with us our new student. I'm sorry, you're going to have to remind me of your name, and
All right.
I apologize.
So my name is Brad Patterson, and I'm a freshman at Hingham High School, obviously. So as my first day here, I think it might be a bit short due to there being 2 days left of school. So today was the final day of full classes, and the next 2 days will be testing days, starting with English and science tomorrow, and social studies and math on Wednesday, and Thursday being the makeup day. And starting with sports news, girls track yet again took gold in the 4x400 meter relay, and Sierra Irvin also set a new school record and won gold in the individual 400. And Green Committee is collecting binders for the binder drive, and summer books were given out today for that were received during the summer book drive. And still 2014 yearbooks and senior videos are still available in the main office. And this, I'm not sure if Jamie included this in his last school committee, but Miss Berlucci was given a Teacher of the Month. And this Thursday after makeups, Stuco kids will be painting Mrs. Flanagan's room. And I think that's about it for...
Okay. Right, question, why are they painting her room? Is it honor or something?
I couldn't find any more information, but they're painting it after school tomorrow.
Sounds like an interesting, could be an interesting event.
Does she know about it?
Surprise, surprise.
Good question.
Yeah, and I think maybe most of you heard, but if you haven't, so boys lacrosse suffered a little bit of a crushing defeat on Saturday, again at the hands of Medfield in the state championship. But great season, so congratulations to that team.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, communications. We have a few things in your packets.
Yes, there's a letter from one of the other school committee candidates who had expressed some interest in and a lot of knowledge about technology in his presentation. I did send a letter, by the way, and I didn't include it here, of appreciation to all five of the candidates. And in response to that, he did send a letter offering some help to us, and I followed up on that. You do have a copy of that, because we have particular interest in what knowledge we have about STEM programs, since grade 6 community next year includes a STEM component that will be taught by Tim Kayakis, who's certified in science. We're very excited about that offering for our 6th graders. And then also there is a letter from some neighbors, some residents of Tupelo Road, which is behind the Anchor Plaza. You have a copy of that letter in Ray, you would like to comment on that?
Yeah, it was actually,
I didn't attend.
it was actually Ed and I who were there. So it was Wednesday night?
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
They'll run together.
The meeting of the ZBA, kind of a continued hearing of an applicant to put essentially a cell tower behind the Anchor Plaza on Lincoln Street, 3A. And it abuts a residential neighborhood, and it's been going on for several months. You probably read about it. We gotten this letter, and I guess at some prior meeting, there was some indication that Foster was mentioned as a potential alternative site. And the thinking was that, obviously the residential, the folks in that residential neighborhood would prefer it not be located there, but perhaps see the value of a cell tower. And we're suggesting that even if we would consider taking a look at whether we'd be interested in possibly talking about siting a cell tower anywhere on the Foster School property. The only thing I told them that I would mention it here, and that we would talk very briefly about whether we wanted to consider it in the future. Not talk about it in detail substantively tonight, but whether we wanted to take it up at a future meeting. I would point out that I think they scheduled a continued hearing for probably sometime in July, and it seemed like they're pretty far along where they're getting close to probably granting approval with some conditions. I would suspect the hearing that we went to, there was quite a bit of technical testimony by an engineer. Go ahead.
When Ray and I went to the meeting, I felt kind of responsible because I think I kind of got the ball rolling. To pick up where Ray left off, this has come quite a ways along. We received a request from the neighbors. As part of the request was a engineer's report, Dr. Hayes, H-A-E-S, who is the AT&T radiation specialist. I think other than Dr. Gallo, it's been a long time since I've taken calculus, and who read the report. I did, in fact, was able to reach Dr. Hayes because I really wasn't sure how far this was going to go. And just to quickly summarize, in terms of the energy, I asked him if a meta-analysis had been done on this topic. And he didn't really answer my question. A meta-analysis for you all is the gold standard for doing scientific exams, scientific reports. He told me that there have been no proactive studies, but there are several retroactive, so we can always look at those. And very frankly, I asked him, are there any schools in Massachusetts that have done this? And he said, yes, Tewksbury tripped over themselves to put a multi-tower service tower on school property. I agree with Ray. I think it's the 11th hour. We both got a sense that this particular process has come a long way. But, and I think we all agree that if this were to have legs with respect to the school, looking into it, the children's safety would be first and foremost.
Absolutely.
So that's really all I have to say. I have to agree with Ray. I just think I don't think there's enough time to, what they want to do.
And I wasn't necessarily suggesting that we shouldn't, but just kind of as a factual perspective, that it looks like that they're at a point where I think the next hearing will probably be the last.
Yeah.
And they'll either say no or they'll grant it with some conditions. And it looks like they're leaning towards granting it with conditions because I think it's the Telecommunications Act of 1996 kind of ties their hands a little bit in what they can deny.
Were we ever notified that Foster was a
No.
site they were looking at?
It was only in the letter where there was a reference.
What happened was, as I must have been having a meeting withdrawal one night because I was watching the Hingham cable, and it was a meeting that I knew nothing about. I said, oh, this is interesting, and they talked, and the comment was made, did anyone contact the schools? Because in point of fact, the testing is done on a drive-around basis, and the point was made that the school, and they didn't even say Foster, they just said the school, would be a excellent location. And the comment was made that David Clory from the school department had been contacted, and I can't exactly remember the sentence, but it was the school didn't feel it was appropriate at that time. And I said, well, David Clory, that's January 4 years ago. So, that, when I ran this idea by Dr. Gallo, she couldn't even remember the conversation 3 or 4 years ago.
We looked in,
Yeah.
what files we could think of where something might be, so.
We could certainly contact David
Well,
and ask him but
yeah.
at the same time, I mean, certainly it would involve, permitting process. Foster, as you know, has some wetlands.
Right behind.
Not exactly what the extent of those are, where the buildable area is. Obviously, there would be some financial benefit to doing this. Don't know exactly what that was. I tried to talk to some folks at my firm who are familiar with, this area. Couldn't really give me essentially what the going rate for a license for something like this in a residential suburban community in Massachusetts would be. So we'd need to look into that further if we were so inclined, to see if the benefit would outweigh potentially the drawbacks. I don't know. But again, that's, do we even feel like we want to discuss this in a substantive way at some point in the future? Maybe should we wait and see what happens at the July ZBA hearing, or just decide we don't want to do anything? Or, I'll leave it up to you, as Andy.
Just to keep it short and simple, I would be receptive to hearing their proposal. Just, if you want more cell tower bonds or cell tower leases have a 99% release rate, the technology's gotten a lot better. There's been a lot more studies about
Energy.
about the energy and also about the radio frequencies.
Yep.
We're worried, but I would definitely hear the proposal because it's a cash flow stream that you got AT&T, Verizon who always compete for those things. So.
Well, there really isn't a proposal. That's the point.
Yeah, there really isn't anything. It was just a mention of our site at Foster as
Yeah.
being,
But
you know.
what I heard was that the Tupelo residents said that they were asked, would the school committee consider it? And that's what they were supposed to go back to say. Now, granted, you guys were at the hearing, so I defer to you.
Well,
but
there's nothing really to consider because no one's made any type of proposal to us. We only know that they mentioned the Foster. I guess there was, at some prior hearing, there was a review of, maybe 40 alternative sites, and Foster was one of them.
Yeah, right.
And there was some hearsay testimony that someone had indicated that Foster would be an ideal site. I wasn't there, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what the residents have represented to us,
Dr. Ed, do we know how long ago the Tewksbury one?
No, I don't. I just asked him some energy
I know,
questions.
As a personal friend, the former superintendent was Tewksbury, but she's been gone from that job about 4 years, so I can get some.
That was the one now he is located in Vermont. That's in New Hampshire. But he was very familiar with Massachusetts. That was the one he just
That's
came up
Hayes.
with right at the top of his head.
Interestingly, there's a tower on the smokestack at the shipyard, and you see how close that area near Foster is, and supposedly they don't get good enough reception from the tower right there. Apparently, sometimes they get reception from a tower at the airport or a tower across, it's going across the water. Remarkable to me that right next door you would not get the benefit of.
Yeah.
Wasn't there, 6 or 7 years ago, didn't they put a tower in the steeple?
Yes, First Parish Church.
Yeah. And I thought it's St. Paul's.
Yeah.
No,
No, it's
I know
gonna be next
north.
door
They
to
didn't
St.
in the
Paul.
north, that's right, they talked about that that night.
It's in
Yeah.
That was a
Baptist
controversy.
That was
downtown.
very
It's First
controversial.
Baptist,
First Baptist.
across from Old Ship.
Across from Old Chip.
Yeah. That's where,
But getting back to Carol's point, I think they were proposing to put one
Yeah.
there, and it was very controversial.
that's right,
Yeah.
that's
As I
right.
recall.
I would suggest that we just wait and see what happens at ZBA. I mean, this would be very controversial, I think, to put this on
I'm sorry.
school property.
See,
Wait to see what happens
yeah, well,
at the
I
next
think that's
meeting.
really where I went at it.
I mean, I don't mind waiting to ZBA. I didn't.
Yeah.
One of the options you said you want to take action or seemed like take action to rule it out, and I'm saying I don't mind waiting to ZBA.
Yeah, I don't
but
think we should rule it out.
Right.
My only suggestion was whether we will even want to discuss it at some point substantively in the future, but I would agree it probably makes sense to wait and see what happens at the next ZBA hearing, and then if we want to take it up further, if it makes sense to do that, if we're approached in another way, then we could talk about it then. So we'll table it until we find out what happens at the next ZBA hearing. I think it's in July. I'll find out the date and.
I'd just like to add to what Carol said. I know about the St. Paul's controversy, and I did just Google cell phone towers on schools, and there are, across the country, there are now cell phone towers going up on schools. So I didn't read too much further into it, because I was familiar with the St. Paul's situation, and so I think we should just wait and see, but it is happening around the country, and so there financial was a big reason for it, but I think the safety of the students is the priority, and if we have the time to deal with the issue, too, so.
Yeah, no, that's something that Ed and I talked about, whether, we would even have the time with everything else.
Dr. Hayes mentioned that these cell towers that are being hidden in church steeples, all these churches have preschools and Sunday schools.
Right.
But he was the engineer that was reporting for.
He's hired by AT&T.
Hired by AT&T.
The applicant.
Yeah.
They give a disclosure in the back
Yep.
that, but he's still hired by AT&T.
He's also mentioned when we were doing the Fields project, putting them on top of the lights, and, I would just tread carefully.
Oh, yeah.
I think we should wait.
I agree. All right, so consensus that we just table it until
Sure.
next
Yes.
CBA? Okay, great. All right. You wanted the hiring and enrollment, you'll move down and do that in superintendent's?
Yes.
Yeah.
Got listed in the wrong place.
Okay, questions or comments from the audience? Anything not on the agenda? Okay. Superintendent's report.
Well, just an update on MCAS and Park. We continue to get updates on recommendations that are going to be made on two school committees, and then on a few school committee decisions. And I know that Liza has received some information back from her friends at the School Committee Association. Ellen and I have information about what some of the communities on the South Shore are doing. I think it's fair to say that we're not going to be alone in the decision that you all made at the last meeting, and I continue to think that it's the right decision for us at this time. That doesn't mean it's the right decision for everybody. There is something in your packet that clarifies a bit, although we got several other emails last week from the Commissioner's office that suggests that what we thought was a date that could be changed, a date of June 30th by making a decision, and then it could be changed in October, and the newest word seems to suggest that that is not the case, that the decision by June 30th is a binding one. We were reminded again this morning that it's a binding one, so I included that piece of information, but we do have some lists. I'm always hesitant to share other people's news, and so if you have an interest, you can speak to Liza or Ellen or me, and we can show you where we think we are with respect to some communities and the surveys that have been done. But we will not be alone. Likely, in my mind, it's probably going to be something more like a 60-40 split, or maybe 60-35 split in terms of Park versus MCAS. But I'm very comfortable with it. We're in a good place, and we all made a wise decision last meeting.
What was that decision? What did you decide?
This was the decision about going with, remaining for us with MCAS over Park for next year.
The school committee already voted on that?
The school committee did vote at the last
Okay.
meeting, yes.
Okay.
All right, the next item, we talked some about handwriting at the last meeting. It's one of those topics about which everyone has an opinion, but the opinion varies widely. So we did select some more information from some various sources. Lainey put her research team on it. I believe her research team is the individual that she lives with in her house who did some research for her, and various other people, including Wes, have sent along articles. In fact, we have one in your packet tonight. So we as well had a discussion last week at the principals meeting, and I think I've summarized in the notes here that I think our approach at this point is to, at first, be sure that we're implementing the guidelines that we have uniformly across all buildings, and specifically with respect to what's supposed to happen at each grade level. The guidelines are clear, but I think over the years, particularly in recent years, as we've added new staff, I'm not convinced that they all have those guidelines in place. But I think it would be interesting for you to read the pluses and minuses, because it really is all over the place, from people who say, you know, we don't need cursive because after all they'll be using computers, to people who cite research that suggests that cursive has some benefits in terms of how the brain develops. And so you look at those two extremes, and I'm not sure where we fall. I do have a fair number of articles, and my thinking is I'll put them in a Dropbox, in your school library Dropbox, and then you can read them or not at your leisure, and we will endeavor to get everybody on the same place. We provide some training for our new teachers before school starts at the elementary level in both literacy and math, and we'll make sure that the handwriting piece becomes part of that. I think in recent years we focus more on the core text, and we focus more on the Common Core and on RTI and those things, so we need to get back to at least doing what we said we're supposed to be doing on handwriting.
Just to
Yes.
follow up quickly on the handwriting, so I did get a handmade card for Father's Day from my second grader, and there is cursive writing, which maybe could use a little more work, I don't know, but I really did appreciate it, and so it shows that it is being exercised to some extent.
Okay. And then in terms of the projection and the hiring, let me start with the hiring. I anticipate that unlike last year's 40 new professional staff, this year it's going to be a number closer to 20, and that about half of those people are already identified, and in fact I've met with 4 or 5 of them, so we're making good progress on the hiring front. And part of the reason that there were so many fewer is that we had fewer retirements, we had fewer unanticipated full-year leaves than we had last year at this time, but as well we had a fair number of teachers returning. So some of the vacancies that we had were filled by people that we had this year filling leave positions that we wanted to keep on board, and we've been able to do that, so we don't have anyone who's not going to be employed for that reason. With respect to the projections, I've given you an update, and I crossed out and wrote in by hand, and that wasn't because of laziness, but it was for you to be able to see how many changes there have been since the last update, which was at our last meeting. So on 6/2, you have the numbers that are typed in, and on 6/13, last Friday, you have the numbers I put in by hand, and you can see that almost every number changed. And this is an unusual year in terms of the variability from one time to the other. So this is where we stand. We still do have one of the 2 new FTEs that is not yet allocated. And, you know, you can look at the chart and see most likely we'd probably all agree where it should go today, but I really would like to continue to wait on that until the grade K and the grade 1 numbers settle down a bit more. So this reflects assignment of one of those FTEs, but not the second one. And the second thing is that this reflects an assumption of 3 kindergartens, not 4, at East. And it may be that we need to put back another one, and that's another reason for waiting to make major decisions until the numbers settle down more. So that's where we are. At the secondary level, we don't make projections until later in the summer, and the reason for that is that as our secondary students enroll, particularly at the high school, one has to sit down and look at all of their credits, because their grade placement is not dependent upon what grade they were in last year, or even what grades they received, but rather on numbers of credits. So all of that work has to go into place. They then have to be scheduled, and those things tend to happen later in the summer. So
Do we have any more copies of this?
excuse me?
Do we have any more copies of this, if anyone in the audience
I
would like?
can certainly make some.
Would anyone like a copy of this? Yeah. Sit back.
Dr. Gello?
Yes.
If the remaining FTE were to be placed in a kindergarten, and just
Well, actually,
hypothetically, is that a .5?
that's a .5.
Okay.
So
That keeps you-
what we
yep.
have is one of the 2 new ones is not allocated.
Can't read it.
But East was scheduled for 4, right now, he's carrying 3, so we have another .5 in hand. So if we have to put back the .5, that still leaves us
Oh.
with the 1.
So we're sitting at 1.5 then?
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5.
right.
Okay.
But the .5 we would allocate only if
Yeah.
kindergarten
Yeah,
needs it
yeah,
back.
And these numbers are very fluid through the summer. I know a family, someone I work with, they coming from Metro West, they're moving. I think they're closing the end of this week
Right.
with kids, so.
So that's part of the
How many?
reason, obviously.
3, I think.
I'm seeing the same thing.
Okay. All right, so Margaret is with us. 4 years ago, almost to the night, Margaret came and presented a program review that kind of kick-started the ball rolling, and look where we are 4 years later. Margaret's back to give us an update, see where the athletic department is. Thanks for coming, Margaret.
Sure. Thank you
Great.
for having me.
Great compilation here, yeah.
There we go.
John, the light?
I think,
Oops. Oh, figures. Well, first, thanks for giving me the opportunity to update you. Carol, it's great to have you back. I'm glad you're here to be a part of this because you were so much a part of what you're about to see. What's new in the athletic department in 4 years? A few things. We've had a few changes, and I'm thrilled to be able to try to condense this for you, okay? So first, I came to you 4 years ago, talked about our facilities. And if you take a look upper left here, that's the old gym. Down on the right, the new gym. If you take a look at the color of the wood, it's easy to see. We took it right down, right to the bare wood, painted on new lines, and the one to the right, you can barely see some white and yellow lines, which really makes the playing surface so much nicer. We put name on the floor, you know, just gave it a new modern look. On top of that, we put in new lighting, which was really something, and also a new sound system. The speakers are up there. But the gym is just a very welcoming place, and because it tends to be the place where the community meets, I think it really reflects the pride of the community. And so that was really a new update. I came to you, showed you up close the track. We had a lot of lifting. If you can see patches right there, I think is a better picture of it. I think I counted 4 years ago, we had about 37 patches on the track. Isn't that a beautiful sight? And that was, 4 years ago. And that's our track. And as we also found out when we started looking at it, that we had an elevation issue where our kids were running downhill, having wonderful times, but there was a 3-foot elevation differential from the start to the finish, although our opponents ran the same race, so there was no unfair advantage on that. But so we went from this to that, and I believe that this little wall here might have been a change order on our plan, but boy, what a wonderful improvement that was. It's a great viewing area when you're out to watch a track meet, and the track team uses the concession behind it, and it's just great to be able to see that.
Nice color on the concession building.
Did you notice that?
That's $1 million.
red.
We flipped the track and put a nice new 8-lane track in right there, and if you note, the progress doesn't stop there, because this next slide shows We grew bleachers, press box, and a great viewing area for a track meet. And so that was the beginning. I then moved on. If you recall, I showed you these pictures. These were our tennis courts, and I think for a lot of people, no one really knew unless you actually went out and walked down the tennis courts that they were cracking and falling apart. To emphasize the point, I had this little kiddo was from the other team. I asked her to stick her hand in the crack just to emphasize 4 fingers across down to her knuckles 4 years ago. We now have 6 beautiful courts, all newly paved and painted, and consequently we've been able to bring our tennis teams, both our girls and boys tennis team plays their matches there. They alternate week to week where they'll practice. Girls will practice here 1 week, the next week the boys will practice. But when the girls are away, the boys are home, so both teams play their matches right at the high school, which is great because that's the place where you're most visible. I mean, Cronin Court's a great shape, but no one knows you're there. And then who can forget our beloved press box with the 3 honking speakers there? No, and we have no, what do you call it?
Crow's nest.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you got
crow's
one, it
nest up
just
top.
wasn't pretty dangerous.
Bye.
See ya.
I know, we're pretty easy.
That you dirty rat.
All right. I believe that happened last July,
Yeah.
only to be replaced by, this is my new home away from home, right here. And the day that went in, that was pretty exciting. And of course, now we have a state-of-the-art sound system. We have the crow's nest up top where both our video, our team videos, our cable company is there, as well as our opponents. All video their games from there, from that angle. And of course, this was our field, hockey field, 4 years ago. That caught a lot of people's eyes, and that was in many of the newspapers. A better view. This is pretty much, someone described playing left field on the baseball field as being below sea level. And it's kind of pretty true. But the baseball field is way back there, if you can see that. This is today. That picture was taken on Friday, but quite a difference. We have the new backstop back there. Again, this is current. That's from our softball field looking down, but and our grass is coming in pretty nicely now. This, of course, is the old practice field for the football team, and it that is really, really rugged to think that you're practicing on something like that. And this is today. Probably the greatest makeover in the history of this town, I think. But our state-of-the-art lights, that was, I think if you were in Hingham the day the lights were erected, that was also another day that was pretty exciting. That was our first night game, and as luck would have it, we had a big old full moon. It was a great night. Girls soccer was our first game there. And then, of course, this is what we're looking at today. And it's really been so exciting to be able to live through this and enjoy it. This past spring was unbelievable. Our boys and girls lacrosse teams were able to play all of their games. We had 0 rainouts for lacrosse, and can't say the same for baseball and softball. And as you know, the spring was pretty bad, but we were able to play all of our games, and our youth sports were able to get on the field in the evening, and I believe they had quite a bit of time, almost every single night they were able to get on. And so that was some of our physical changes. And what I'm going to take you through right now, has anybody ever seen the TV show, I think it's called HGTV, where they do a makeover of a house? It's kind of an interesting show where, you know, if they're trying to if you're looking for updates in a house, in an hour, they go through everything, but there's a time frame that they have to get the project done, and there's a cost that they have to keep it within the cost. And of course, like any project, there's all kinds of issues. Well, I'm going to take you through our building project. I will spare you some of the issues that we came upon, but still, I think it's important to see some of these things. So that was the beginning, last July, and where they were grading up the grass there. Moving forward, that's Lake Hingham that we discovered, which was right in the middle of where the field was about to be. All of our electrical was put into piping and put underground there. And, you know, I've heard some people say, well, you know, the drainage still isn't fixed. And I thought it was important that you saw the drainage and what exactly was done, because it is massive under that field as well as on the grass fields. But this was all kinds of piping that was put in, and then put gravel over it. And this field is layered in so many ways. Right here, what they did is they put down a lot of sand, and that thing that looks like, I don't know what, but that is actually a piece of felt piping about, probably a foot wide, and within it is all kinds of plastic pipes that the water runs through into the drain and is being directed out. So it was really well thought out. That was put in. Again, everything was covered, layers of gravel. Right along here, we have all footings for the field itself. Cement was poured practically every single day. I'd watch the cement truck come in. These are footings for the bleachers, as well as all the piping. Again, and if you look back here, that you can see it abuts the track, comes right up to the track there, and then the finished product with the bleachers sitting on top of the footings. Again, layers of dirt and then gravel. They put that down, and then they rolled it as flat as could be, and then put the gravel on top of it. And that, for a while there, I thought, oh, they made a mistake. I can't believe we're going to put gravel now. But then the carpet went right on top of the gravel, and I thought, wow, the kid's going to be falling right on that gravel. But instead, the infill within the carpet, you know, inches of rubber and sand, and it's really quite soft when you step on it. And so the field itself went in by hand. All the cuttings of the numbers went in by hand and was glued. And that was the first night that we turned on the lights. And that's Dr. Gala right there. She is praising the gods of light. And
I was saying, it's just like the rendering.
exactly.
Reaction.
But that was a pretty exciting night. The project, also, a lot of things improved that were not related to athletics, and these are some of them. One was the fencing here, and that is the property line, along with new, pretty mature plantings. And this, again, was done, I would say, right about the fall, early fall, late summer. And that is what it looks like today. And so the growth has really taken on, and it's really quite nice. This, another, something that isn't necessarily athletic related, but the extension of the parking lot, and that's what it looks like today. And boy, that has been a godsend, I think, on many of our venues. That really, I think the day-to-day parking just in schools is, I don't think it's an issue at all, or it shouldn't be. This is our baseball field, and again, more drainage all through here, this piping. You know, being a very wet spring, I took a walk out on that along the baselines in the spring, and they were quite dry. Everything else was wet, but that was dry. And that's our baseball field today, which of course is offline until next spring. This is our softball field across the street. If you can see back here, you can kind of see it's mixing in with, it's the backstop for the new softball field. Again, lots of layers, sand, loam, dirt, whatever. That's the softball field today, and I can't wait for that team to get back and play. I mean, we played down in Carlson this spring, and that was great, but you really are, you know, way off the beaten path as far as the high school world is concerned. But so that field really came out nicely. There's a couple of holes in the outfield that we'll have to keep an eye on to fill in, but I think, you know, as far as a playing area, it's beautiful. And of course, the boulevard, as I like to refer to it, is the path from the far parking lot down. It's just beautiful, and at night it's beautiful. It's dimly lit, and it's just very nice. It's a great look. This, of course, is our, you probably wouldn't know, but this is our new concession stand, or the beginnings of it. And, you know, it went along piece by piece, walls, and of course our infamous ladies' room, and men's room, but just went in the ladies' room. It's beautiful, with its many toilets.
20 exactly.
That
Yes.
smooth floor.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place. John Todd told me his lacrosse team was practicing, and we had it open. If kids were going to the bathroom left and right, everybody was saying, I have to go to the bathroom. Leaving practice just to check out the bathrooms. This, of course, is the area on top, which I'll be able to use for storage, and I'm excited about that. That's certainly something that is very well needed. And that, of course, is the outside. It's beautiful. Can't wait to get it up and running for a concession stand at a football game. Okay, so that was our physical changes. Moving on in our program, because that was physical, but so what have we done? We've done quite a bit in the past 4 years. Some of the things that have been terrific, baseball state championship last year, that was so exciting. Our track teams are loaded in every sense of the word. They are huge numbers of students. They are tremendously talented. They're well coached. They are just, every time they take the track, a new record is broken. It's a very exciting time for Hingham track. Our tennis teams do well, both boys and girls. Our girls golf team, South Sectional champions last year and Patriot League champions, and that was the first in school history for girls golf. Moving on, our rowing teams were both state champions last spring. And boys golf this past fall, Patriot League and South Sectional champion. And again, going right through the tracks, going all the way down. Oh, let me stop at boys basketball for a second, because that too was the first Patriot League championship for boys basketball. And that was last winter, not this past winter, the one before. Again, indoor track, every time they run, we buy a banner. Wrestling has really, you know, claimed their stake in the league as league champion. They are the team to beat. Boys swimming is coming along very nicely. Last year, this past winter, we finished, I believe it was 4th in the state meet, which is unbelievable for a relatively young program as ours. And we're small in number, but we still had, a great performances. Girls ice hockey, state champions. Tennis, again, girls tennis, they kind of have a lock on the league championship for the past few years. And, this year I thought we might be down a little. We graduated some really strong players last year, and when I was trying to woo some opponents, I said, we're not going to be as strong as we usually are, and then we really were. And I felt like I was sandbagging them, but they knew better. And then our most recent champion, our boys lacrosse, South Sectional champions last weekend. Then during the week, won in an overtime game over at Harvard, and then on Saturday played a great game against Medfield. Third quarter, we were down 7-5. It was really exciting, except fourth quarter they put the clamps on and walked away with the victory. But nonetheless, great season for them, and very exciting run. And when you think about it, the athletic season started August 19th and ended June. What was Saturday? June 14th. So June 14th. So quite a, we went as far as we could. So that was pretty exciting. This is a stat that actually surprised me, and that we have so many coaches of the year. This is in the last 4 years, Boston Globe Coach of the Year. This is crazy. This is a crazy statistic. This doesn't happen in other schools. And our most recent one, like this year, we had Kate McDonough for swimming, Dawn Diedrichson for girls indoor track, and I just got an email the other night, John Todd for boys lacrosse. John is here, by the way, so congratulations, John. But, as far as, and we also have done very well in sportsmanship category too, being named sportsmanship awards as well. But those are that's just a very impressive stat right there. I put in your packet our participation numbers, and what I listed there, that's the top 10. Although there's more than 10 there, but we have a few ties. And I just thought it was great to be able to see just how the numbers fall. And, as I said, the track teams, and the interesting thing about track, most of the kids have never run when they come to Hingham High School. It's not like they have running in their background, but they go out for the team. It's a lot of fun, and they work very hard. They have good coaching, and they do very well. Our football numbers are climbing back up there, which is nice. Last year we were thin at the freshman level, but our fall sign-up, where for our freshmen, we're up around 30 kids, so we're pleased with that. At our 8th grade, we had a meeting for 8th grade parents. It was Paula Gerard McCann introduced the academic program, and Heather Llewellyn talked about guidance, and I spoke about athletics. But at that meeting, I spoke a little bit about the fears of concussions, and because that is so much in the news. And one of the things that I think Hingham's always been ahead of the curve, having the impact testing early on. And what we are doing is, I don't think we're ever going to have a time where students aren't going to get concussions, but what we are going to have is a time when people are more aware of the fact of what a concussion is, what it can do to you, and we can manage it better as well. And so hopefully the fear factor of playing some of the contact sports will be mitigated by that. This year, boys lacrosse had big numbers, 77. What we tried to do is add extra junior varsity games and extra freshman games to try and freshman is a little bit difficult because not all schools have freshman programs, but we tried to add, extra JV games so we could give some students more playing time, just to try, to carry big numbers, try and get everyone in the games. The added games, they weren't for getting, the best players in. It was to get all of your players in. So, boys soccer, they too last year, they chose not to cut. They had big numbers. Didn't work out as well as they had hoped. Just because it's difficult to get so many students into the games, and there was some dissatisfaction at that level, about playing time. Boys ice hockey too, this year we, thanks to their booster group, they had, we were able to manage 2 JVs, and why that worked in that sport and would not work as well in other sports is that other schools were similar, and they developed a JV league that played their games, I believe, on the weekend or a weeknight. And so all of these teams went to the same rink, played their games, and our ice hockey boosters paid for the extra coaching and the officials in that. And so that's why it worked. In other sports, it would be more difficult because you just don't have, it's not like you can just develop a second JV boys soccer team or something to that nature. A lot of schools, like right now, I'm trying to schedule freshman games for the fall, and a lot of schools will tell me, we're not sure we have enough kids to field the team. And so they're not like us in terms of we have a lot of students participating. This was kind of an interesting stat. This is students that play multiple sports by gender and by grade, and in the 9th grade and 10th, more girls do that than boys do that. Junior year, it's almost even, and then senior year, it falls off fairly significantly for the amount of students that play multiple sports. So in part, there may be some specialization there, but when you look at the next slide, this is the amount of students that play at least one sport. And except for freshman year, the girls significantly, senior year significantly, and even sophomore year, there were more girls playing at least one sport more than boys. So I would say that more boys play multiple sports at the upper levels. So, that, let's see where we're heading next. Yes. Where we can improve. This is, well, you know what, I'm going to go back one. I'm going to go back to this for a second, not to comment on this. Before I go to the weight room, I did put in your packets areas that I thought we could improve on, and I brought this to the attention of the committee 4 years ago as well. One was the weight room, and the other was coaching salaries. And I know that you're involved or about to be involved in negotiations of things. In your packet are the coaching salaries, and not that I want to spend a lot of time on that, but I will say that, you know, for a couple of, prior to my arriving at Hingham, I had heard that couple of negotiating years that there was no increase, no step increase, and consequently, what has happened is Hingham's basically fallen below. Well, I would say fallen below the equator of it within our league. More schools pay their head coaches better than our head coaches are paid. I'd like you to take a look at that and why that's a problem. I think that it's a problem, well, stating the obvious, I think we're a pretty outstanding program, outstanding town. We have outstanding teams and coaches. But the second reason is, as we go on to replace coaches, attracting new coaches, salary, not that people do it for the money, but salary makes a difference. I had a conversation with the Duxbury AD. He has an opening girls varsity soccer. And so I asked him, how do you think that's going to go? He said, he said, it's wide open, and I think I'm going to have great candidates because I have a great salary. And so it does attract people. And so that is my fear going forward, that our salaries would be behind, and I might not get the best candidate if if one person's going for two different jobs. And so that is where I would. That's what I wanted you to hear from me regarding with the salaries, because as we, I know you'll be negotiating, and just so you know my rationale, and obviously I'm an advocate for that. Weight room. This is our ventilation system in our weight room. We have a fan, and that's open to the outdoors. We have a door to the outside, but when it's 10 degrees out, it's not a good idea to have that open. Our weight room is small, it's overcrowded, and because of that, we can't put in a lot of equipment. The equipment we have is heavily used. It's used daily by after school. It's used by the physical education classes quite a bit. It's used by adult education. Sometimes staff uses it, or they used to. I mean, I've had staff say to me, we used to do this, but it's not a place I want to work out anymore. And I know we don't build it for the staff, but I think that that statement speaks volumes. Anyway, this is our fan, and as you can tell, it's rusted, dirty, and this right here, the slide is on the elliptical machine. The elliptical is about 3 years old, and what that is, it's all rusted and pitted, and that's because, you have 25 kids in there, they're working out, condensation, there's no place for it to go, it sticks to everything. Our weights are rusted. This is one of our weight machines, all rusted out. This is all of our piping on the ceiling, where everything just collects. And if you can see it, all the piping is all along here. This room was never built to be a weight room, but that's where the space was, and that's what it became. Again, this piping, and you see this black all the way around. I want to emphasize with this that this is not a statement on our inability to keep our weight room clean, because this was a given afternoon. I just went down, kids had just worked out, all the weights were racked, the custodians cleaned the floors, but there's only so much they can do with the conditions. It will never improve. This little treadmill over here, that's just there for looks, totally toast. I'm just waiting to try and buy a new one and have the company take that one away. So we have one treadmill, 2 ellipticals, and a bike for our cardio room. It's just a very small room with limited equipment, overly used. This, on the other hand, this is Silver Lake's weight room. No pipes up there, well lit, state-of-the-art weight equipment, TV right over there, quite a few, ellipticals, steppers. This is Westwood Highs, and they don't like this. I said I'd take it. But again, open vents on the ceiling, and that, a lot more room than we have. I put in your packet some plans that were drawn up in 2003. I offered them as just an idea. I think from 2003 to now, some of the things have changed that I wouldn't necessarily go with these plans all the way, but they do present good ideas. I mean, the current plan, right, is what we have with Miss Beatty's health room, the wrestling room, this is the downstairs and the weight room. The only thing, this little thing here, that's not there anymore. I think it stored voting equipment at one point. And again, this is the upstairs where we have a girls' locker room, boys' locker room. This is the walkway, catwalk, and it's open down. You can watch the wrestlers from up there. Some of these plans, I am not for any plan that would get rid of the wrestling room. We absolutely need it. There's no other place to put it that I can think of. The upstairs on this proposal was to put a second team room for more lockers. We could always use more of those. As we move forward, again, this was to get rid of the wrestling room here and add a second team room, which I would not be for. But they put the wrestling room, they put on the second floor on this particular plan. It's an idea. I can tell you, well, let me just go through this. This one punches out the room where they would add more room. So you'd have your regular weight room, you'd have an access into extended area. And again, they put a little room off the health room. Be great if that could happen. Not sure if those things allow for it, if the rules allow for it. And then, again, more team rooms on this. So what what I see as some of the needs there, we could use more room, absolutely, for the weight room, much better ventilation. I think we need a little bit more room for lockers if we can find it, and also I'd like to see a little more office space and room. Most of our coaches now come in from the outside, and having a place to change, having a locker room for them would be important. I know for myself, I share an office with my assistant, which is fine, except that when I have to have a private conversation, I either have to say, hey, why don't you take a walk? It's just not a good use of her time if I have to have a private conversation and I don't know what to do with her at that time. And so those are just some ideas that I think I'd like to see us pursue, take a look, a good strong look at it as to what exactly can we do at this point. And, so I didn't want to end on a sour note by talking about a weight room, but I wanted to, just say 4 years ago when I came to you, it was only my second year at Hingham, and I wasn't really sure what a 4-year review was, and because I had only been there for 1 year, I was bringing everything I could think of to you, but I'd like to applaud you and thank you for standing up and having the courage to move forward with this project, because it is really, I wish it could be me when officials come to the school and they haven't been here. Our last home game, some officials came, and the last time they officiated a lacrosse game was on the old field, and they walked in and they were like, whoa, what happened here? And I have opposing coaches, I have the general public just saying, how beautiful this is. I know very well what you went through to put this in. Ray, I can tell you I identified so much with your emotion with your comments at graduation, because when I walked out onto that field, the teacher I was beside, I just turned to her and I said, "This is awesome." It was overwhelming to me, because I know what you went through, and I thank you and applaud you for having the courage to take this on and to see it through to its completion. So thank you very much, and that's what's happened here in 4 years. Actually, in 8 months, probably. So,
Thank you, Margaret.
That's
is that
great.
it?
Any questions, comments?
I'd like to make a
Go ahead,
comment.
Carol.
Margaret, I would just like to say I don't know anyone else who has affected more change in a shorter period of time than yourself. You did a fantastic job. You are a great ambassador for the children of Hingham, not just the athletes, but all children. And we thank you for all that you did, because we needed you by us to get this done. And you spoke eloquently when we needed you, and you put in the time and the effort above and beyond any staff position I have ever seen. So thank you.
Well, thank you, but this was certainly a community effort, and that was, I felt like I was along for the ride. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a great opportunity to thank the town again for, the money that was appropriated at town meeting, at multiple town meetings for this project going back a number of years, as well as, well over $1 million in private fundraising that was done by just folks in town who were willing to open up their wallets. So very gratifying. And
You go first.
Well, I'd also like to commend you, Margaret, because we don't just think you're great, but you were awarded Athletic Director of the Year recently, this year, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for representing Hingham, too, in that award, but congratulations. I had a question about Title IX.
Yes.
And one question was, is it, when we look at even opportunity for girls and boys, do we look at number of teams or number of participants, that we make sure we have the same number of participants, girls and boys? or-
We look at participation, we look at overall enrollment, female enrollment versus male enrollment. We look at how many girls play one sport, two sports, three sports, and the same for boys. And, I think that we have, well, as the stats showed, we have more girls that will play at least one sport than boys. We have more girls participating than boys, but I do think we have more boys participating in multiple sports than girls. We will, this summer, we'll move forward and break that down, minutely to show exactly what our percentage is. But, we had almost 78% of the student body participating in interscholastic athletics this year. We have increased in 4 years, I believe it was 41, by 41 students, and we have increased in athletic participation by 111 students. So that's, we're growing. I know that coaches are putting as many kids on teams as possible. This is continuing to grow. We're looking at other options, because there are just some teams that can't handle large numbers. And so we're looking at some intramural opportunities.
Okay. And then, just as follow-up to that, is there any update on the Title IX review that we were imposed on a couple years ago, and any movement on looking at how the boosters are
Well, yes.
even for the boys and the girls?
Yes,
It just flagged me
actually-
when you said that the boys hockey boosters paid for the JV
Second JV.
hockey team, and I don't know if the girls hockey has
Right.
the same
They don't have the
opportunities.
They don't have the
or-
need.
They don't have the
So
participants.
one of the things the gentleman, I can't remember his name.
Bill.
Right.
Kevin. Catazano.
Phil Catanzano from the Department of Ed Civil Rights Division said that it doesn't have to be like a pound for pound an exact match among between the genders, but if there's one benefit on this side, there should be a similar benefit, but doesn't have to be exact, so that there is kind of essential matchup, but doesn't have to be exact same number, exact same benefits, exact same money, but a way to kind of match them up in experiences.
An example of that would be the boys' JV hockey boosters did provide that opportunity for those, extra boys. Otherwise, we would have had to eliminate a number of kids. But girls' tennis this year, their boosters provided an opportunity for us to keep more freshmen, and we tried to play a few more freshman matches. So what we did, what Phil Canizano has told me, that doesn't need boys hockey, girls hockey, but it could be boys hockey, girls tennis. It's providing opportunity rather than denying. And so, and regarding the boosters, I have been in touch with them this year, is collecting data as to, okay, what are your expenses and what are you spending money on? And everything that has been returned to me is fully appropriate and not out of line. No one's buying cars for anyone or things to that nature, and so, and that's something that I'll continue to do moving forward, just talking to the boosters about, as we move forward, those kinds of expenses. We have the concession stand conversations to come up, how we're going to work that. And so it's important to have a good conversation with them.
We've moved forward with all of the things that we had put in that very detailed plan. We haven't gotten responses, but we are continuing to move forward. So we were to do a survey of girls in grades
Yes.
8 through 11 or 12.
Yeah, we did all of them, 8 through 12, a survey.
And we have the results of that survey. And, the point of that survey was to identify whether or not there were areas where we were short, we could expand on, and we didn't find a lot from the survey. Margaret has, again, met with the boosters and encouraged that to go on. I think what John and I would like to come out of that ultimately is to meet at least annually with them, for them to share their financial records. And that's to be sure that they are on target in terms of allowable expenditures or not. Boosters Club vary tremendously from one sport to another, some have very small boosters clubs, some I think have none, and others have larger groups. So we certainly are appreciative of what they do, but we have to be sure that they understand what their things can be spent on. So we haven't gotten back the detailed reports and responses that we anticipated, but we need to move forward. And when Margaret talks about the counting, we found that they count boys and girls and therefore make their judgments about whether or not you have the right balance and access in a way that we hadn't known about, and that is they count the number of participations. So it's not, as Margaret says, not just about how many boys and how many girls and whether that reflects your general population, but if girls participate in only one season but boys do 3, then the balance gets tilted in the other way. So I asked it over the summer, Margaret, count the way they counted the last time around and see where we stand now with respect to the percentage gap, which wasn't a very big one, but it was a percentage gap.
Okay.
So we'll continue to work within the spirit. We notified them of our new facilities, and at least we have more female toilets than boys facilities, so I guess we have to count that. But we let them know that when the vote came and it was successful, that we would have the field and it would be up and running, and that gave equal access to so many of the sports, the lacrosse and then the field hockey not having as good access as the football team had and all that. So I think we've made a lot of progress. It's one of those things you just have to monitor all the time, whether they're on our back or not. It's important to do that, and we've got a good starting point at this time, but certainly we haven't heard from them. in the recent past.
Thank you.
Eddie?
Hello, Margaret. First, a comment. When you mentioned about the salaries,
Yes.
I think you need to have a little bit more in-depth conversation with salary negotiation and Dr. Gallo, because just in my knee-jerk reaction is, it's just not giving them raises, because so many coaches are actually paid through the boosters, so it's going to be a ripple effect, where they're going to have to possibly raise more money. And also, one thing that also occurs to me is, I think our senior class that just graduated versus the 8th grade coming in, I think there's about 100, so it's about 100 kids different, so we're going to have more kids there. So I think we should possibly really identify exactly how many coaches we need, instead of, to relieve some of the pressure on the boosters, because they're going to have more of that. So that's my knee-jerk reaction comment.
Can I just respond to
Yeah.
that? Regarding coaching salaries, I polled all the boosters as to what do you pay a volunteer, as we used to call them, coach. And no one was more than the salary of a freshman coaching salary. And most of them were in the range of, from 500 to maybe 1,500, depending upon the sport. I think, have a head coach having a varsity assistant, which most of our sports do not have, it's very valuable, and people like that position. It's something that will, I don't think a head coaching salary dictates what that person's going to get. I just think it's whatever a booster club, I know in some booster clubs they determine. I'd like to come up with a formula as to what we can do basically across the board. So, we know, X amount of dollars, would be the top.
Well, I mean, obviously, we want to pay them as much as possible, so you want to keep the gap as close as possible.
Yeah.
So if you raise one. But now, my question for you, and I was thinking this when I was looking at the pictures, when you talk about the weight room, does it have to be attached to the building? Because I always look at our old concession stand,
Yeah.
and especially after we cleared all the space and put the new fence up there, there's a lot of room between where the parking lot ends and that wall.
Yeah.
So in theory, and especially, when you start doing construction inside a building versus a standalone, does it have to be attached? I mean, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but
I don't see how it would have to be attached. I mean, obviously, it's convenient.
we have limited
but-
space there. That's the problem also.
Absolutely. I don't think it has to be attached, as long as it's not a hike to get to it. But, I know that, I think Duxbury High School just built a field house that is not attached to their
No,
school building.
16,000 square feet.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even ask him for pictures.
I've seen it.
Their weight room is 16,000?
Oh, the field house.
Oh, the field, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Could I just clarify, there have been a couple comments about the salaries and negotiations and so on, just how that all kind of works. As part of the negotiations that we are undergoing right now with the Teachers Association, there was, by mutual agreement of the schools committee side and the teachers, a committee that was put together to look at the coaching salaries and the various extracurricular salaries, and to look for things like, are some missing, which they are, because the lists that we have are old. And then, on the basis of the committee, which had representatives of the Teachers Association, and Margaret, and Paula, and David Ridden, and to look at some recommendations that they might make as to what those scales should look like. But that document, that recommendation, and the committee's had one meeting so far, would come back to the negotiating table, and as part of that, both sides would again look at what the recommendations are, and it would be negotiated. So obviously Margaret is part of the committee, and obviously her role is to advocate for coaches and their salaries, but it's really part of a bigger picture. So.
Any other questions?
Just one other question, Margaret. Thank you very much. It was a great presentation. Looking at the incoming ninth graders and the increase in population, and I know you've talked about addressing some of the needs through an intramural program. Is there anything more formalized that we can do? I mean, I know you mentioned about the hockey team, boys hockey being a unique situation. Are there any other schools, though, even beyond our league, that we could maybe reach out to engage in a second JV or a second freshman team? I think the whole freshman experience, apart from really being a great athlete, is that it's a great welcoming event for kids coming into the high school. You know,
Right.
they meet upperclassmen, they kind of get into the swing of things with the school, and to the extent we can avoid cutting kids at the ninth grade, which is somewhat maybe more developmental, we should try to do what we can to support that. And I know
Right.
you are, but
It's, well, as I said, it is a little more difficult because the schools in our league, they don't have the numbers that we have. Even
Right.
schools not, we have huge numbers. I looked at the idea, maybe we could try and get a second freshman or a second JV team, but what that would entail now would be a new, bringing on another coach, okay, so there's a coaching expense. There would also be transportation. So, if I could get a schedule, let's say I got a schedule of 16 games, 8 home, 8 away. So now we have transportation expenses, and then officials. Officials, $56 a game, transportation, approximately $220 a bus, and a
we
coaching.
also have all those additional kids paying an athletic fee, so we should have
Exactly.
some additional revenue.
Right. But the other thing that could kind of complicate a little is, field space. As it is, it's 6 soccer teams, out there at one time. Looking for a patch of grass, and if it were able to be done, I would do it. If I could get a schedule, I would do it. It's just, that's
It's gonna be an ongoing problem for us.
Exactly.
As the
because
kids, the numbers
just
increase.
For the next 4 or 5 years, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
gonna keep
Yep.
coming.
Well,
They're
and
gonna
it's
keep coming.
growing because there are more and more youth programs. They are growing, number one, and number two, the number of different sports. I mean, there's a youth program in volleyball now.
Right.
So we have, 41 or 42 freshmen that signed
Signed up.
up. for volleyball.
I reached
Freshmen
out-
Signed up for volleyball. So in some ways, I think that we also have to develop kind of a realistic spirit among parents of younger children, that all of these thousands of kids who are out playing on the weekend, only a certain
But,
number.
if we can maybe find a few sports that we might be able to do.
Well,
at a
we looked at, we've had this discussion just last week, we discussed it, and we looked at the sports that maybe could pick up a few more kids. We looked at things like an intramural league for particularly for soccer, because there are larger numbers there. Field hockey looks okay, football looks okay. We looked at maybe a developmental volleyball experience, so instead of team and competition, build upon this new program in town and say, okay, at the freshman level,
Right.
perhaps most of those kids are doing developmental instructional things.
So they're not traveling, and there's
Right,
maybe.
and so those things would be lesser cost, but in my mind, cost isn't the biggest issue. I think you're right that there'd be more fees and so on. The issue is, who do we play? And I think that deep down, all of these things that we will try, and think about, we did a mid-season or between-season thing last year with basketball, and we got some good interest in that. But deep down, I think the majority of kids want the competition piece of it, and that's the challenge, because competition means somebody else
Right.
is out there to play. So we have some concrete ideas, and we'll build on those. Cost is certainly, a piece of it, but it isn't the only thing. The biggest thing is, who are kids going to play? And I think most kids that want to be in sports want to play someone.
I think it would be good, too, if youth recreational sports might see themselves as expanding a little bit too. I know Baca basketball, I believe, goes into the high school, but most do not. And it might be a good alternative as well.
Thank you.
So.
Ed?
Margaret, as I mentioned earlier, I was in the audience 4 years ago tonight when you did the presentation on the field, and I want to thank you again as the catalyst that got the equation going. It seems like a perfect opportunity to just make a quick announcement. We're going to have a field celebration grand opening on Saturday, August 20th, which is homecoming.
September.
September, excuse me, September, thank you, September. And there's a program in place, and stay tuned. September 20th.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Crit, can you come up here, please? Yeah. Identify yourself for the folks at home.
Escape.
September 20th.
I know.
Don't leave.
Okay.
Questions for you.
Go ahead.
You want me to give my address?
Okay,
Chris
Rich.
Falvey, 12 Isaac Sprague Drive. Margaret, in looking at the weight room, what teams are basically using that weight room today? I mean, I've heard through the grapevine it's basically football and wrestling, and that there are very few, if maybe no, female athletes using
Oh,
that.
there's never a girl in there. Only if phys ed teacher makes them go in or their female coach. No, the track kids will use some of the weights, but, I mean, there's never a girl in there by choice.
I mean, if you guys haven't been to the weight room, you should go check it out, because I have been in the weight room. You wouldn't work out in that weight room either. It's terrible.
Okay.
Margaret, do you think, if the middle school would allow it after school, could any of the high school, like I was a team, go use the middle school?
Yeah,
This equipment?
I haven't seen it,
Something
but I
that
hear
could
it's
be-
beautiful. So-
Something that could be discussed. I mean, it was specifically designed for the middle school age.
Yeah.
You know, free weights weren't included, obviously, concerned about that.
Right.
But it does have a number of machines. It's more of a fitness use, designed to be a third teaching station, if you will. But it's certainly something that could be explored.
It could be cumbersome, I would say, unless an off-season team wanted, went there. But it's kind of, I don't envision my track team having a workout and then getting up to the middle school, like during the season. I could see something like the girls' hockey team preseason meeting there at some
Yep.
point. But that would evolve, okay, now we need to have a supervisor there.
I mean, it does have nice locker room facilities now.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, you might want to see it before you
Ah.
make a decision.
Oh, no, I've seen drawings.
Yeah.
We'll get you on a tour.
Terrific. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Margaret, is that your dongle there? The white one? The white thing?
This
yours?
is yours.
Good.
Okay, you want it? No, she doesn't.
I'm stepping right up here.
So tonight we go from exercise to eating, and we're going to
I'm gonna
get,
feed you.
Brandon Smith is here, our food service director, with an update on where we are with our food service program, which has been, a lot of efforts have gone into over the last couple of years, including a point-of-sale system, revamped menus, opportunities with a new kitchen at the middle
John,
school.
I use this more than you do, and I
And
can't.
additional equipment. And Kim's going to share with us kind of where we are, where we've come, where she wants to continue going.
All right, there we are. Fabulous.
And this, by the way, is a financial update more than a complete program review,
Yep.
which is what we asked Kim to do.
That's cute. All right, well, I have one thing for you, because, of course, the morning after the packets all went out, John and I kind of reviewed some information, and we made a correction. So this is actually the second slide for you all. Should be in there.
Extra.
Awesome. I don't have any demolitions going on my slides today.
You don't have old food and new food?
Sorry. No. I do have old equipment. I have equipment that's older than me. So this is food service, and I spend a lot of time looking at numbers, financial numbers, and John and I meet once a month. The numbers that you're looking at are what we're referring to as the operational budget or operational P&L. In the restaurant industry, we used to call them flash. And it's really how I can see how the district, each individual school is performing financially. So this is revenue from July to, this is actually to May 30th, not including reimbursements for the month of May because I did it on May 30th, so I couldn't put in reimbursements until June 1st. So just so we're clear on what the numbers are. So the difference between what I'm showing you and what the town would show you, all our expenses match toe-to-toe because I turn those in. But revenue-wise, doesn't match because they take all monies and count it, where I only count monies that have been spent, and their revenue posting is a little bit behind what I see. So is everybody clear on that?
So is that like if you have an account balance on a card, you're saying?
Theirs is more like a general ledger, where mine is like a snapshot to show you what had happened in year to date through May 30th.
So
From
if I-
July to May 30th.
If I put $100 on a card, on a food card, and I spend $20,
I'm
yeah.
only counting 20 bucks.
okay.
The
But the
town
town
will
sees the
count.
whole 100.
All right, so
Sees the
that's
whole
why the
100.
difference is,
So that's where the difference is. All right? So last year, at this time, in the fiscal year, we were at 65,000 really, and then this year, we're at 822. So that's our revenues, which is a 20% increase over last year, okay? That's $167,000 more dollars this year than we did in 2013. Expenses as a percent of revenue, really to kind of even out the playing field so you can see everything apples to apples. Our overall expenses have come down 4.25%, so we're managing our expenses much better than we were in 2013. Labor as a percent of revenue, we came down 10.76%, and that's generally because revenue has increased. We had our 2% increase in labor, and we did do some restructuring, and we actually added maybe an hour as to the total labor, but we didn't, we've put, instead of just having 2 people in 2 of our elementary schools, we now have 3. So we're able to actually focus on the kids when they're coming through and not just be so focused on, do I have enough? And, so focused on doing the business part of it, they're not focusing on the kids. Operating profit as a percent of revenue, again, this is as of May 30th. We were in the black at that time. We still have June to go through. And June is a big payroll for us because we pay out vacations. So, but the good news is that we are 15% over the previous year. And then meals sold, this is very promising, almost 9,500 more meals. This year, which we didn't have entirely in 2013, we have the entire Kids in Action program participating in school lunch this year, where in 2013, not all of them were participating. It was only 2 of the schools. And then, so this year, well, all of them are participating, and they're really cute.
These are the kindergarten wraparound kids.
Yes. And then our student participation at this time, overall, district-wide, we're actually up just a little bit, 0.5%. So, change in operating profit, I gave you a breakdown by school. This is the new slide that I gave you. So, I mean, looking at this, you know, the high school is 134% over last year. So as of May 30th, they weren't in the black, they were in the positive. Middle school, they're 364% over last year. They are just knocking it out of the park over there at the middle school. Their participation is up, their revenue is up, and you know, they're just, I can't wait to get into that new kitchen, because if this is how it is now and what we're working in, I cannot wait to get in that new kitchen. East has always been one of our better operating as far as expense and revenue and so on and so forth, and they're up 208%. And if you go all the way down the line, Foster is 70%, Plymouth River 49%, South 93%. So overall, you know, we're 112% over last year, and I don't think any of us sitting in this room over the summer even could think that we would be even this close. So I'm pretty proud of my team. Equipment repair and maintenance has kind of been one of our issues and our concerns. We do have a scheduled maintenance program in place, which costs us somewhere around $6,000. So twice a year, I have a company that goes in and goes through the equipment and make sure that we're running and operational to try to avoid any big incidences come when we run. You know, we run 10 months out of the year. We want to make sure that everything's up and functioning and we don't have any issues so that it doesn't affect operations. Also in that, we have the hoods in all the schools are, well, the high school is cleaned twice a year because they do they do make burgers, so they are generating grease. Where the other schools really are not, but you still have stuff being sucked up into those hoods. So most of the other schools are cleaned once a year, but they're all inspected twice a year, and that's required, and it's also a safety thing. So no fires in the kitchen. Okay, but what you see here in the biggest struggle would be, say, in Foster. It's one of our older schools. Some of the equipment that is there is from here, when this was a school. So we had a couple of things that happened over the summer. We lost, well, basically the first week we got back, we had a double door freezer that went and a double door refrigerator that went. We managed to hobble along without the freezer because I knew that we would be able to take the one from the middle school that's there currently. And we did end up having to purchase a new double door refrigerator because that's where they serve out of, right there on the line, so they needed that. And we had, right before April vacation, the oven went. All year long, they were operating just fine, and then, of course, it just, had about a $1,500 repair. So, it doesn't help over there. So last year, the focus, kind of our vision, the focus with school lunch is about educating and modeling the best way to fuel the body and the mind. School lunch is the perfect model for students to see, smell, touch, and experience proper nutrition. I always say, I'm like, if they don't put it in their mouth, then it's not nutrition. So what we did to follow this vision and to keep us in there, we started in the elementary schools. We do Just a Bite program. And that came about because in 2013, as you all know, the nutritional regulations came down and we had to serve certain things. I have to serve a half a cup of beans for every week. There has to be a half cup serving of beans. Well, a half cup serving to a first grader is a lot of beans, okay? Culturally, they're more exposed to them now than they were, say, 5 years ago, but culturally, that's not how we generally eat. We don't eat a lot of beans. We do more so now than we did, like I said, 5 years ago. So we did Just a Bite program. So what we do is every week we feature a bean and we put it in some sort of like a hummus, a salsa, we do a salad, and we usually serve it with some sort of, and it's a 2-ounce serving. So we're meeting our requirements because we serve it almost every day. And then the kids get to take it, and it's called Just a Bite. So, a lot of them are taking it because we're putting 2 or 3 tostada chips with them. And some of my managers have said, they're only taking it because of the chips. I'm like, I don't care. They're taking it. You can't tell me that a child is not going to take a little serving with 3 tostada chips every single day and is not eventually going to try it. Because the curiosity is going to kill them. Either that or their friends are going to dare them to do it. One or the other. And they're going to taste it. And hopefully they'll like it. So what I did see is that in the beginning, because I have it set up on the POS, Just a Bite, where if they take it, it gets punched in. There's no charge for it. It's just a way for me to track how many kids are actually taking it. And in the beginning, they weren't taking so much. And then as time went on, they became more and more used to it. They were looking for it, and it was fun for them. So, yay for beans. So we also did the Harvest of the Month with Farms to Schools. That was kind of a new thing. Farms to Schools is a nonprofit organization that is obviously promoting local produce. And what they did is they came up with fun cards with facts on them, like little trading cards and posters. And basically, to be part of the program, you have to feature that produce item at least twice on your menu. So I introduced the kids to kale. So we have kale on the menu on a regular basis. Roasted butternut squash, we did that. And then the others were apples, carrots, and things, pears, all things that most of them have had. So, but next year they're going to actually expand it, and instead of doing it, they did it for, I want to say they did it 7 months, because we started a little bit late. I discovered them at a food show, so I was like, ooh, I want to do that. But this next year they're going to expand it. One of the things they're going to focus on, one of the Harvest of the Month items is seeds. So I'm kind of excited about that. 'Cause we've been serving honey roasted sunflower seeds, and the kids really like them. So, and we have better training of the staff of what makes a reimbursable meal, so that they understand what it is and what needs to be on the tray to constitute as a reimbursable meal. For those of you who don't know, a reimbursable meal, we are an offer versus serve facility, which means we have to offer the 5 components of lunch, which is milk, protein, grain, fruit, and a vegetable.
Can you say that again?
We got to offer 5 components, and those 5 components are milk, protein, grain, fruit, and a vegetable.
Thank you, sorry about that.
You're very welcome. And out of those 5, the kids have to have at least 3 on the tray. And out of that 3, one of them has to be a half-cup serving of a fruit or a vegetable. So, at the high school this year, one of the things we did, for instance, when they came to us and they didn't have a fruit or a vegetable, one of the commodities we received from the government were raisins. They won the prize of a box of raisins on their tray. So, you win the prize. But, then they were coming back to get them, and, of course, the custodians were like, they're throwing them. I'm like, you know what? They need to eat them. They need to have them. So, okay. This year, I don't know why, I had an epiphany. I had 2 of my schools that were having issues with their expenses. And I was like, how can I help them to make them see this better? So I put them on a declining budget. And a declining budget, basically what I've done is I've taken what percentage of revenue that they're over that I've been tracking all year, and I looked at last year's sales and applied that percentage to get their forecasted or predicted revenue for the year, and then based that expense of what they could spend on, basically I looked at East Elementary, it was 2 elementary schools, where their food cost is, because they were making money, where their paper expense was. And we applied that, and I set it up so that they could plug in their orders, their totals, and they would be able to see how much money they were spending and how much money was coming down. I said, it's just like if you are getting your paycheck and money is tight that week because your car broke down and you had to spend $300 on that car and you have $50 left in your account to go grocery shopping. You can only spend $50 because that's all you have. I said, it's the same thing. And you know what? It took them a little bit because it was set up on a spreadsheet and it's something different, for them to look at, but they basically understood. And I have to tell you that their expenses have come down dramatically in the last 2 months because it became almost a competition. I put it up on the drive so they could see what each other were doing, how each other were spending. So it kind of became a little bit of a competition, who was gonna do better. So the next line is we're on the drive, the Google Drive. I mean, these are women that 2 years ago couldn't open an email and read an email or respond to an email. We have them now on the POS. I have them reading emails. They're on the Google Drive is, for those who don't know, the entire school district is now on Google. And with that, they have this basically, I told my ladies, I said, it's like a bulletin board. I post something up on the bulletin board, you come by, you can write something on the bulletin board and everybody can see it. Or, you can take something away and put something back up there. And so we did that with our orders. So they can see all the orders that all the other schools, which is great, especially at the elementary level, because all the menus are the same. So when they're looking at the produce order, that, PRS has already got their order up, and, South is putting her order up, and she's looking at it, and she says, oh, she's got kale on her order. Do we have kale on the menu? So they go back and they look, and same with the bread. So, I'm hoping that we'll get to that point where they'll be calling each other saying, hey, don't order those 10 cases of chicken nuggets. I got 5 that I gotta move. So, it's opening that communication. Payroll hours, it just labor saving time. I'm not picking up the phone and having to call 6 schools to get hours, and if they do it on a daily basis, it really only takes them a few moments. It's a matter of, I look at it, I tell my assistant it's ready to go, she takes that information, she puts it up on the spreadsheet, she hands it into payroll, it's done. And then I also use it as a venue to share monthly results, operating revenue versus expenses. They get to see that. It's open to them to see on a monthly basis. So when I'm done and I'm able to verify it, and I put it up, and they get an email saying that the information is shared with them, they can see it. And then participation, I always do it weekly, but sometimes I do it more often because somebody may have had a really killer day, and I want to make sure that they know that it's being seen. And I make sure I CC John on it, so John gets a chance to see it. And they like that. They're all trying to beat East. They all are. They all call me up. I was like too shy. I didn't beat East. So next year, all grains served need to be 51% whole grain. So we kind of started that this year, towards the end of the year. All the elementaries and the middle school are already serving everything that they have as whole grain, with the exception of 2 items, which is pasta and the calzone dough. Calzone dough is not whole grain. So at the deli bar, I took out their white hamburger buns and replaced them with wheat buns. And then at the deli bar, I took away the white wraps, and now they have whole wheat wraps. They're not real happy about the wrap situation, but I bet that they're not getting much white bread at home. They just like it. I'm sorry. So what's cooking for next year is, as I said, the Farm to School program is expanding. So that's the Harvest of the Month program is expanding. So each month is a different produce item. They provide us with the marketing material, and the kids actually get a really big kick out of it. They thought that was great that the baby carrots aren't actually baby carrots. They're carrots that are cut down to look like baby carrots. They thought that was fabulous. Next year, I'm very excited. We're going to be participant in DoD Fresh program. DoD is Department of Defense. And we will be able to buy fresh produce at the Department of Defense prices. So in those winter months, this actually started last year, but we weren't able to participate because it was piloted. This year, it's actually opened up more to all districts. So come those long winter months when it's difficult to get good produce at fresh prices and good prices, I'll be able to to actually spend those dollars at that time and bring in some fresh produce at less money. So sponsor entitlement dollars are dollars based on our student participation that the USDA allots to us. Does everybody get that? It took me a while to figure that out, but I got it. So now I can actually take that money and put it towards there, towards fresh product versus just getting canned product. So, yay. And they pick up the bill. So, and the USDA is, I have to say, in the last 3 years, the first year I got here, I was like, what are they doing? I don't get this. Because I came from the restaurant business where, in the restaurant business, you ordered what you needed and that's what you got. It's different with the USDA. Primarily, it's, this is what we have, make it work. I'm like, yeah. So they have the DoD Fresh program, and actually this year, I was able to let them tell them what it is that I would like for them to offer us every month, so that it's stuff that I want, stuff that I need. I mean, I can't use 8 cases of cranberry sauce every month. So, I actually am able to put on there, applesauce and canned apples for apple crisp. And so I've put in requests, hopefully it all works out, but at least I've had a say in what we want. So as these kids start coming up, we have these younger kids that now have been introduced to beans and to kale and to butternut squash, and we'll be able to start moving those products up with the kids on the menus. So next year, because now we've had the Just a Bite program, it was only 1 year, but you know what? I'm going to start putting that hummus on the menu on a regular basis over at the middle school. It might be just the setting. As soon as they get into that new school, they'll be like, oh, that looks great. Let me have that one. Ooh, yeah. And the new middle school has all kinds of fabulous equipment. And, one of the things that I'm excited about doing next year will be smoothies. We get frozen blueberries and strawberries from the government. And, we can get yogurt. So now we have protein. And, we always have bananas, and sometimes, the bananas don't all go that week, and what do you do with it? I can't make banana bread because it doesn't meet the USDA requirements, but I can put them in a smoothie. So, and then the Harvest of the Month vegetables, again, we're going to start moving up to the other schools. Over this summer, we're going to basically work on 4 modules. We're going to work on the inventory. That should be, actually, I have a call on that tomorrow, and it'll be actually set up so that there will be a theoretical and a physical. There'll be something to tie it back to. I would be able to, if somebody calls me up and, their freezer went down and they don't have any pretzels and we're serving pretzels, I can actually just go on the computer and look and see who's got extra pretzels. The menu will, not only the menu program will include the nutritional analysis, but I'm excited because it will tie into the inventory. I'll actually be able to cost out per meal what I have going on. Payroll tracking, they'll actually be punching in and out through the POS. And then the free and reduced applications, we're actually going to be working with a scanning and online application. It's going to be better accountability, more anonymity for those who may be intimidated to send in that application to the school. They can actually just go right online and fill that out. The participation at the high school continues to struggle. The current student base, they basically, they had the new regulations thrust on them, and food service has felt the brunt of their frustration. We do have a flow problem with the lines that we are looking into improving for 2016 school year. And because of the POS and all this data that I have, I can actually break down participation by grade, by school, per day if I want to. And what I'm still seeing is that, when they get to the junior and senior level, they drop off as far as their school lunch participation. But the high school still continues to make money. So we've had lots of improvements. All hard work is yielding results. You know, financially, we are much better. We're operationally more structured, and as the new modules are added, it will only be better. And there is still more we can do. We're just gonna keep on trucking. I think those are soybeans, but I'm not sure. But in conclusion, here you go. Questions? Yes.
Thank you, Kim.
Sure.
Great information. So you say the high school continues to make money and the middle school participation is way up. What do you attribute to driving those two facts?
I'm going to start with the middle school. I honestly believe that closing the snack room has had a lot to do with our increase in participation at the middle school. And it hurt us last year, the first year it was closed, but you know, there's 2 grade levels in there now that don't really know the snack room. They can still get snacks, but they have to come through the line. And they're buying more lunches. So, you know, they're spending their money on lunches. I also think the POS has really helped there because parents, there's less and less cash coming in at the middle school level. So, you know, the parents can see, because you can go and sign up for parentonline.net and you can see the history. You know, is my child going in and buying 5 cookies for lunch, or are they buying a lunch? So.
And the high school
And
is making money.
It's making money.
Even though the participation's not great. And that's because of the various offerings?
A lot of it has to do with the a la carte. The a la carte is there. It's the a la carte revenue, and because we did go up in our lunch prices and our participation has dropped off a little bit, it hasn't dropped off significantly, so I think that has helped with the revenues.
Would you consider moving the a la carte program to the middle school, or do you already do that in some fashion?
We already do that in some fashion. We do it on the line. My concern with doing it at the middle school is that they go from the elementary school where they have very little variety, and then they get into the middle school, and they have they do have a lot of variety for full meals, different types of meals, and they do get, they can get cereal, they can get yogurt, they can get fresh fruit, they can get pretzels, they can buy cookies, they can buy fiber bars, so they have a lot of, and water.
Mm-hmm.
So they do have a lot of options for a la carte items. It's just more controlled, and I think it's better for the kids.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Andy?
Did you?
Nope, go ahead.
Sure. So Kim, I appreciate your enthusiasm and knowing all the ins and outs, and obviously it's a better picture. Just refresh me on some things. What did we increase our prices on the meals from last year?
We went up a quarter. All the way around. So your elementary meals are $3, your middle school meals are $3.25, and your high school meals are $3.50.
Okay.
And and we went up on the deli as well. So the deli was $4.25, now it's $4.50 at the high school.
Okay, so those went up. And now you're saying that, how much did the middle school participation go up? It went way up, you said.
It's, 2%,
Okay.
which is a lot in a year.
So the other 4 then went down? Because it's like down here in the student participation, it says it went from 27.92 to 28.5.
No, well, that's overall. We've got the 4 elementaries. Basically, the elementary schools are even. East and PRS are less than 0.5% under. Foster is 4.5% to 5% over prior year.
Okay.
And then South is down a bit. They're down about 1% or a little more. And then the high school is almost even too. So that's kind of where things kind of get moved, kind of meet in the middle.
Okay. And so when you said your operating profit, so I'm thinking your revenue minus expenses. So in the expenses, that's your food, that's your supplies, your labor,
Yes.
Is the payroll tax included in the labor or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
And benefits are not included?
No.
All right, and then these equipment and repairs that you have here, is that included in the expenses?
Those are included in your expenses.
Okay.
Payroll is listed separately on that, in the big picture slide. It has, we have total revenues, then we have expenses, and then underneath that is labor. So I do
Okay.
separate out labor from expenses because I want to be able to see the difference.
And then, so, go back, so equipment, so the equipment repair and maintenance is coming out of the out of revenue? These things that we spent
Yeah,
here?
under expenses, yep.
Okay. And then utilities, that's just, you guys don't itemize utilities?
No, we do not.
All right. So then lastly, here, and again, it's interesting knowing all the, like banana bread, I thought that was a brilliant idea to try to serve that, but that doesn't qualify.
It's too much sugar.
Too much sugar.
You just can't win.
I might be able to do some applesauce. So it might be, there could be some fine tuning.
So you said June, you'll have vacations. So should we be anticipating a loss for June?
All indicators are showing, yes, we will experience a bit of a loss in June. But the month's not over. So, we just served our last lunch at the high school yesterday. We have our last lunch tomorrow at the middle school, and then we have, the last day is Wednesday at the elementary schools. And then I have reimbursements. On top of that, we also have, not just government reimbursements, but we also have what we call rebates out there. So, stop me if you don't follow this, because it's a little confusing. So you can take some of your sponsor entitlement dollars that you get awarded from the government, and you can take raw product and divert that to a manufacturer. Then the manufacturer will make you that product. You then order it through your regular vendor. Then you have to submit a rebate to get your money back. So you have to track all the information, and then you submit a rebate. So for instance, last year we diverted cheese. So I just received a rebate back from Schwann's, which is one of the makers of our pizza, for $750. That will go into June's revenue.
Okay.
Did everybody get that? It's a little crazy.
It's the government at its best.
Well, it is. So since we were operating revenues as, operating profit as percentage revenue, do you expect us then to be flat or slightly negative?
My optimistic side says that we're going to venture to flat to slightly over, but I can't tell you definitively 100% until.
Well, it's a lot better than
everything
last year,
comes-
so.
Yeah, we're trending definitely much better than last year. It's the best that I've seen it since I've been here. It's been great. It's fun, it's like last year, I don't know how many times I went into John's office going, I don't understand why it's not getting any better. And then this year, it kind of started coming around. So I actually look forward to going, look, John, look.
Kim, at what point do you close the books on this school year?
The end of the year would be June 30th.
But when are you able to do all these rebates and?
So we've already started because we've already finished all of our ordering. So all of our rebates have been submitted, and, we knew that the Schwann's was going to be a pretty substantial amount. So, my assistant, I said, get on the phone and see what we can do. So I've been in contact, and I've pushed to try to get all that money in. And I will tell you, I will be in here bright and early on the 19th submitting my reimbursement for meals. So hopefully we can get that in and on June. Last year, we were able to do a journal entry to make sure that it did enter into that school year.
Well, would you have a final report for us? When would you be able to have a final report for us?
It's really dependent on the town. I'm hesitant to tell you an exact date, but usually they're like the second week into the previous month, so maybe somewhere around the 15th of July.
They won't close the books until the end of August. Right. So when it comes down to the government accountant, we need to watch everything we say, and how the rebates come in and where they're going to be posted, because the government is basically on a cash flow basis. So basically, when the when the money comes in, it's gonna hit that year. We're producing management reports here, so we can kind of give you meaningful information on how the operations go. But at the end of the day, when we tie this to the books, I can't tell you where it's going to end up right now. I would make an assumption, a conservative assumption right now, that we'll see it's slightly in the negative, a lot less in the negative than it was last year. But I would expect that it would be in the negative, looking at it from the full government picture. You know, and those reimbursements that we get may end up benefiting the next year. You know, it's really tough to understand the government reports and know how everything gets closed out, especially when you have the reimbursements coming in and the rebates coming in, and then the town sometimes taking 2 months to post information. You know, Kim does an excellent job capturing all the information and then going back and trying to tie it to the report. So this information is very, very close. But if I had to say something now, I would expect it would be slightly negative, a lot less negative than we were last year.
Liza?
So I commend you on your management of everyone and innovation with your staff. That's really great. And I was looking, when you look at meals sold are up 5% on the first page. for
Uh-huh.
this. And then, but student participation is virtually flat. So
Well-
are the same kids ordering more meals? I know my daughter does. It's easier for me on the POS. Yep,
Enrollment's
just-
gone up. Our enrollment has gone up because Kids in Action is now participating. So they're buying meals. You know, the first graders are buying more meals. So, you know, our participation is dependent on enrollment. So that's why it's where it's at.
So it's a good news report, but it's based on two things factor into it. One, you have more kids this year than last.
Right.
And another thing is we increased the prices.
Oh, so this is a percentage of the enrollment as opposed to
No, it's just overall
percentage
number.
of,
If your enrollment goes up,
Okay,
you should
all
end
right,
up with
all right.
more meals
It's
sold.
just overall numbers,
Okay.
so.
Right.
All right.
It doesn't take into account
Yeah.
numbers to numbers.
yeah,
because This
okay.
year's higher numbers with
Right.
more dollars.
Got
Like
it.
any other business, as a market grows, you'll make more money because your fixed cost is what a lot.
Yeah.
You know, so and that's the beauty. If you have your fixed cost, anytime you can take in more volume and process it with the same fixed costs, you know, your operations are going to improve. So getting participation up or number of meals sold, either
Either
way
one,
it
okay.
happens, with the same infrastructure will benefit the operations.
Okay. And how are the bonus meals going?
You would be I was very surprised to see that East and Foster have the highest bonus meal counts. Yeah, no, it's the elementary kids. They are really digging being able to have extra chicken nuggets. They like being able to have an extra pretzel on pretzel meal day. You know, and you keep talking to like the high school kids, and it's like, you know, get the bonus meal. You know, you get, it's more for your money. You know, you could get two. You don't have to just get one. And they don't seem to, you know. So my hope is as they come up, that the bonus meals will also increase because they'll be more used to it. But I was very surprised, and I was a little concerned about that, you know, as far as, you know, what are parents going to say and what's the feedback. But honestly, the feedback primarily for me from parents has been, you know what, I'm just happy that, you know, that on the day that they like to buy chicken nuggets, that they can get extra chicken nuggets because they come home and they're hungry. So, you know, I've had quite a few conversations with parents over this year.
Anything else?
I just have a couple questions. Great job.
Thank you.
Huge improvement in the last couple years. John, are we covering benefits fully yet? We were on a scale, right?
Oh, not, food service will never cover benefits.
No.
Never, no. I can't see, probably not in my lifetime, will we earn profitability enough to cover benefits.
We started to pay a
For
little
this
bit of Kids in
program.
Action, but not this.
Okay.
Kids in
Right.
Action will be okay.
Yeah, Kids in Action, we are covering.
One of the differences, though, and which makes it difficult, if not impossible, to cover benefits, is a higher percentage of food service workers who take the benefits. So if we're looking not just at a token payment, but real payment for real benefit, we have a higher percentage in that employee group than across the whole district in all employee groups.
I will have to say that I do have some ladies that are working for me that are strictly working just for the benefits. They don't take a paycheck home, they're just working for the benefits.
No. The POS system, we're in our second or third year.
We just finished our second year.
Okay. Do you have an idea of how many, have we seen an increase in people using the POS system?
Definitely. There have been some of the elementary schools where they actually have had no cash to take to the bank.
Okay.
So
That's
that
good.
has happened a couple of times this year. You know, and more, it's so important for the speed of the line. I cannot tell you how much faster the line goes when they're not handling that cash. And it's literally, it's boom, 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 boom. Because there's been a couple of times this year that I have been at schools and on the register, especially at the high school.
So is there something we can do to market that a little bit in the fall?
You know, we'll do our best. I send out emails, you know, and, you know, it's,
We haven't done stats on that for a while. We were doing it pretty regularly early on, you know, where it's, okay, 22%, 25%, 28%. We saw the trajectory growing, but really, we haven't even.
No, we haven't
We
looked at-
haven't looked at that statistics, you know.
in a while.
Yeah, several months. I don't know if was it last
yeah.
year? Or was I can't even remember if
It was the end of
last
last,
year.
I think it was over the summer because we did it for this presentation.
Because we knew it was taking hold. I mean, but we would certainly kick off, and everybody is alerted about the POS, and everybody is encouraged to do a parent online account.
Right.
It's
It's
a
so
great tool.
easy.
I mean,
It would just be
yeah,
great to see
you
it,
go on
yeah.
it in a snap of whether you're okay. It's an excellent tool. I would guess, Carol, it's going to take off by itself, but we can certainly stimulate it, and we will, absolutely,
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year, when those letters go out, and, you know, when the open houses happen, and we try to explain to everybody, oh, here's how we do it. I mean, we'd love to get to a cashless society,
Yeah.
but, you know, we'll continue taking cash.
We had the opportunity to go to, I took my team from the middle school over to the Norwell Middle School, and they have been on a POS online for many,
Yeah,
many, many
yeah.
years.
You set it
And
up there.
2006.
Did you do it there?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
they had just put it in when I got there. But it was in a year, so, and it really
So-
did a great job for participation.
Yeah, so when we were there, it was actually really funny. A couple of my staff, do they not take cash here? And so I looked at Judy, she's the director, because it didn't even dawn on me to think about that. And I was like, Judy, you take cash? She says, oh yeah. She says, but all their money is online already. So they're literally just whipping through the line. So, you know, it will get there. You know, I know that elementary parents really like it because there's less chance of the money getting lost. You know, it goes right there. It's available for them. There's no worries, no stress for the kids. So the money's there.
Well, I hope it takes off more. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ray, just a question about storage at the middle school. Is there any extra storage at the middle school that can help out the other schools, dry goods and freezer?
I think there is some space. When we designed it,
Yeah.
we talked about
remember that.
there being space to make that kind of a central point.
Initially, when because that was my first year here, and I was like, ooh, I get to be invited to this. So, and I looked at the plans, and the walk-in refrigerator and the walk-in freezer, they had it as the same size. And I said, you know, we don't really need that big of a walk-in refrigerator. It would be better for us if we could take more space for the freezer than we would in the refrigerator. And we were able to do that. Now we have a fairly good-size freezer. I have to say that the freezer storage issue we've really managed through ordering and working down the inventories. So, this year when the Board of Health came through, that was one of the things that I went down and talked to them about was, were always putting down freezer space. And I said, you just got to give me some time and we'll get it there. And we've gotten it there. Foster, which has probably the tiniest freezer in the entire district, she was working with that and literally an ice cream chest to storage. And, she can move around in there. She's got everything is stored properly and the way it should be. So it's just a matter of managing your product. And now they're understanding that we're not a warehouse. That's not how you order. You order for what you need. That's why we have distributors. That's why we pay them to bring us our stuff. Because that's what they do. They warehouse.
John or Kim, would you anticipate a discussion about raising our prices this year?
No.
We're really not recommending it this year, Ed. We think we have, we did increase the pricing last year, and we restructured some pricing. In the, I've taken the brunt of the restructuring. We like it, but it's okay. We think we're doing fine. We think that the momentum we have is going well. And that restructuring had to do if you don't buy a meal, if you only go up and you just buy the sandwich, you're paying the government subsidy in the cost of the price. And that ends up being an a la carte sale, which is why a la carte revenues are doing well. So my son, single-handedly.
I mean, John,
But he graduated, so I'm fine.
don't we have real costs going up? I mean, we're going to have payroll going up 2% next year.
The contract's not negotiated yet.
We-
but
I'm sorry.
they're
But we're anticipating
presumably-
that our costs are going to go up.
I do think costs will go up, yes. And, I think that, Kim thinks, as well as I, that, we're sort of priced right now to continue these operations moving to, increase volume.
Yeah.
Increase volume.
But we raised it, what, 25 cents last year, you said?
Yes.
With not marginal effect on participation. So, I mean, our costs are going up. We have big-time expenditures going out for new equipment. There's no allocation for utilities. There's no contribution for payroll taxes, so I think a small increase continues to be warranted.
I'm leery of doing another increase so soon as for it to have an adverse effect. I don't want to outprice us for the market. It is my feeling that with these new modules that we have going in place, we'll have tighter control on our costs, and that we will be able to continue to increase that revenue. We went up, our revenue increased 20% this year. I understand that we did take a price increase, and that certainly contributed to it. But at the same rate, my staff is doing a much better job with controlling their expenses, and I feel that as soon as, when we get into that middle school, we'll see a bigger increase. And, these kids that are now in the middle school are going to moving up into the high school. My data shows that the freshman and the sophomore class and the high school currently are buying lunch and are buying it at a higher participation than the juniors or the seniors. So I expect that to continue as they come up.
I just always favor, the nice thing if everything's electronic, I don't mind even doing, with athletic fees and KIA, we've been doing 2.5%, 3% a year. Now, granted, 25 cents is more like 10%, but you can raise it a little bit, and if the majority of people are using the card, it just maintains what our actual expenses are. But yeah, I defer to you guys.
I think,
Kim, I would assume we're in line with what other schools are charging right now.
We're one of the highest.
Yeah, we're high.
Yeah.
We're high, based on what others, like when I tell them where we're at for
Yeah.
lunches, they're like, you're getting what?
Build your following. Build your following.
right, and the
first.
other thing is too, while we're in the process of trying to accomplish something and we're kind of on the way
Taking
to
steps.
get to something, And on the heels of an increase last year, I think if that approach is more like a business approach, and I don't think you can do that when you're trying to accomplish something that obviously is going to take longer than just 1 year over year to look at.
Yeah, I had talked to, of course, a few of my fellow directors, and they all told me that, I was crazy thinking that I could change this all in a year. You're nuts. You can't do it in a year. It's
You've
going
done
to
a good
take you.
job, though.
Huh?
You've done a very good job
Well,
in a
thank
year.
you. They're like, it's going to take a couple years. It's going to take 3 to 5 years for you to start to see an impact. And, they were right. This is year 3, and we're seeing some changes, and things are coming around. I think that because I'm more accessible to the student body. I think
Did
that
those
that
taste
helps.
testings, remember, at
They
open
know you.
houses?
Yeah, we did the taste
Yeah.
testings. I do my little newsletter every month.
You're engaged. You are definitely engaged. And
I try to. I mean, job's fun, so it's like, I
Well,
get
Kim, what's
to.
exciting, the middle school is really carrying this change this year, and we're going to have a brand-new, the newest Hingham restaurant is going to be coming online
Oh,
at the middle school.
I'm gonna get to grill burgers
Yeah.
and chicken and vegetables and fruit and
That's gonna be
we got
fun.
fabulous silver thermal serving dishes to put the salads and the cold stuff in, and
we're coming
oh,
over.
yeah, I can't wait. Man, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, we could do grilled pizzas. I'm all excited.
Moving the program up, that's it. I mean, it's the,
These kids, though, once they leave the Taj Mahal, are gonna wonder where they're going into come next year.
Anything else for
Good.
Kim?
Thank you, Kim.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Okay. 8.3, so we talk about this every year, so we have certain groups that do not have collective bargaining agreements.
Or individuals.
Or exactly, individuals don't have collective bargaining agreements, and every year we establish those salaries, and they're always consistent with what the increases for the other groups or individuals, for the most part, are getting. And they tend to be, it tends to be a schedule of, certain instructors, substitutes, teaching assistants, summer help, drivers, ed instructors, those types of folks.
it'll probably go.
So the idea is that DOT would take care of establishing new salaries for those individuals and groups consistent with already established agreements at some point over the summer. Let me see here. Right. Yeah, so we've got
Want me to make a motion?
substitutes, right, custodian, substitutes, substitute teachers, driver education coordinators, teaching assistants, summer teaching assistants. There's maybe a dozen or 15 or so different categories.
Well, and there are also some things that aren't on that particular
Right.
list that will come along, that will need a salary, but there's some conditions on it that we have to pass it by you, and likely you and Carol, and it has to be within what's budgeted, and it has to be within any settlements that we have at that point, or where we anticipate settlements to be.
Right, so obviously we don't have settlements yet for any of the groups for the new year, but we do have an allowance budgeted in the fiscal 15 budget. Yeah.
I want to make a motion to establish salaries for individuals in non-collective bargaining groups during the summer, provided they are within budget and reflect parameters established by already approved agreements, and this would be a recommendation to authorize the superintendent to do this.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item, 8.4, you remember we've talked about the Foster Shed. and cameras, ongoing work, structural repairs that need to be done at the Foster Shed, and a camera project that is going to be worked on over the summer, essentially to allow the administration to act on bids for both of those items upon receipt of the bids, and obviously checking your references. And we've talked about an allocation for the Foster Shed previously.
Yes,
If you remember, we did go out to bid, and we didn't get any bids.
that's correct. And it's out to bid again now, to be
essentially
open
we-
6/25.
Right, we found out that essentially the reason why we didn't get any bids is because the number we were saying it would be was too low.
Right.
So what's the number now? Or what?
Well, the number now, I mean, we raised the number on the estimate to like $75,000, but then at the same point, the last meeting, the committee said, why don't you include the FRP panels along
Right.
with it? So I added that as an alternate. I think that would be above the 75,
Yep.
so.
The what panels, those?
The
plexiglass?
transmitting light
Yeah.
panels, yes. So, I did add that as an alternate, but I see that alternate as above the 75,000,
Did you have a ballpark for what
I've been,
those would be?
when we talk about the forecast, in this forecast, I've actually encumbered $100,000 for that project.
Have we already put out the camera project? Or-
The camera project, yeah, actually, the camera project, we solicited that off of FAC 64, which is a state contract, and today I had the vendors in to open up their bids. Now, once you do open the bids in FAC 64, it isn't an automatic assignment to the lowest bidder. There's room now for negotiation and talking with these vendors to try to do something with the pricing. But interestingly enough, for the base camera project that we bid, I got prices received today from $159,700 all the way up to $260,600. So there's certainly prices, prices here that are within our budgeted amount for this project, which is the grant money.
288.
It was 288 for the whole grant, but we've allocated some of that for access control measures, some for, other types of measures. So we have enough money, presuming if we're, looking at the bidders that are on the lower end of the spectrum, the ability to add more cameras to the field for the concession and to, do some other good things that we had intended to do. So, but this request for allowing us to award will give me the ability to make sure I check references and do all the legwork to make sure that I end up with the right vendor for the project. Couldn't do that today after I opened up the bids.
Do you anticipate getting a shed rehabilitation bids back this time?
25th.
I do anticipate getting at least a bid, yes.
Okay.
We did have, I sent it out to bid again, we did have a pre-bid conference. I have not made them mandatory. One bidder did show up and has already got a price for, a couple of the components and had a sandblaster there for some of the paint work. So, and he had come before as well. So I'm expecting at least one bid, hopefully more bids, because, within the bid spec and in the directions, I said, you can go visit the site yourself to site verify everything, but just don't do it during school hours. And I did have calls saying, is there ability to see this? They didn't read the directions, but yes, I told them that there was. So hopefully a couple other bidders will come in as well.
So Ray, you want a motion? Okay, I would like to make a motion that we authorize the school administration to award bids for the structural repairs of the Foster Shed and for the new HPS camera project during the summer to the best responsible bidder, John.
Right.
Under the state contract FAC 64.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good. I hope we get lucky on the Foster shed. It'd be great if we could get that work done this summer.
Me too.
Okay, which brings us in, finance seems to be the topic of the evening.
It's June.
As we near the end of the school year and the end of the fiscal year, give us an update of where we stand on.
I have some extra copies of that forecast letter if you want to give out. Yeah, so the end-of-year finance is as of right now, I'm looking at.
If anybody wants, this is what we're talking about right now.
I'm looking at a surplus of about $524,000 to return to the town. Similarly to last year, much of this money has to do with special education and VOTEC tuitions that didn't result as budgeted. Also, at this time, in that amount of money, as I said, I have encumbered, money for the Foster shed. I've also encumbered some money to replace food service equipment, telephone wiring itself, and also encumbered for potential special education settlements. The, really in regular education, there's a deficit, and what those are considered, one is we have extraordinary energy expenditures due to the usually harsh winter. And then also for those encumbrances for the food service equipment, the Foster shed, and the telephone wiring. So when we look at the regular education portion of the budget, we're seeing, negative numbers for contract, for, other, and the other categories, and utilities and gasoline. So the salary accounts, I'll go through some of the details here. The salary accounts in regular ed, primarily positive, and that's because of the custodian supervisor position that we did not hire in FY14, but should be hiring, within the next week or so. We've had the interviews, so we'll be making an offer very shortly on that. Additionally, we had a custodian retire, and we replaced a budgeted custodian with a lower cost custodian, but also, while that position remained unfilled, we were able to cover with subs. So all those things could sort of contribute to a positive variance for personnel. Also, during the hiring season, it was a very positive hiring season. So salary counts are positive by $177,000. To offset that, utilities and gasoline, as we all know, we had a very cold winter. Initially, this one was, in previous forecasts, this number was much higher because I didn't really know when I was going to have to take over that second middle school. Fortunately, we took substantial completion around May 1st. First bill came in, a couple $1,000s, a few $1,000s, so not nearly the significant amounts that I thought we would get. Additionally, fuel costs have remained very stable. Our contract served us well this year. Even though I ran out of diesel fuel, my last fills of diesel fuel were down. So, we picked up a little money there. And then also, electricity, a little counterintuitive, is actually been below budget, for the year. So it offset some of that. It was below budget by about $45,000. And, when we look at the bills, I think that has to do with the power cost adjustment that Hingham Municipal Light makes. And that power cost adjustment, I believe, is subject to what their fuel costs are or what they get as a fuel charge for the generation of the electricity that they purchase. So that was sitting at a lower level for the beginning of the year, and it has recently gone up to 2 cents from 1 cent. So I think that power cost adjustment may have some impact on the positive electricity variance that offset, the negative variance for utilities and gasoline at $86,000. Special education, out-of-district tuition, special ed transportation, specialized services, and VOTEC, less the circuit breaker. Those projecting a positive variance of $665,000. The tuitions alone are about $760 below budget, and that's primarily due to unanticipated graduations, students that were retained in-house and brought back students, And then also anticipated placements that didn't occur over the year. Some of the in-house, the ones that we retained in-house are offset by some additional contract expenses, but, we saved them the tuitions. The VOTEC, we had one student that we had budgeted that did not attend, and the transportation, which we always have money in transportation in case we have to, in case we can't handle transportation in-house. So, we were able to save that amount of money for VOTEC too. So VOTEC accounts for about $30,000 worth of that. Also in this number, this positive variance that I'm projecting has actually been reduced by less anticipated use of the pre-K revolving account by $150,000. I initially took that out of the money, the 524, thinking that, reserving this amount can help us make up a significant portion of a big reduction that I would anticipate would happen next year. In the 15 budget, we have $1.1 million worth of circuit breaker funding, which was basically the result of 2 years ago when we had that spike in special ed tuitions. Next year, that number is likely to drop to about, $700,000 to $800,000 range. So we could be, hit right off the bat with like a $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 deficit in just the circuit breaker alone. So, by not spending that money this year, we could throw that extra $150,000 to sort of offset some of that one-time shot, if the committee thinks that's the appropriate thing to do. But that's within this forecast right now. The other thing, we have the $524,000, and Dot can speak about this more later, but last April, we voted for the self-rule special ed stabilization fund in the town, and the committee may want to investigate some way of taking some of that 524 and using it to fund a stabilization account, by working with the advisory committee and the selectmen. So, but Doc can speak about more of that later. The contracts in negative 85,000 that I'm showing is where I have the Foster shed encumbered for $100,000. And then there's also some money encumbered in contracts there for some moving of the middle school, the older furniture to the other schools so that our maintenance people can stay on the task of making sure that they attend to critical work. Why isn't it over $100,000? That's because we do have project money in the budget, operating budget anyways, and it's presumed that that project money will be directed towards the Foster shed as well. So the negative variance is mitigated to, 85,000 negative. And then in the other, there's $177,000 negative in the other category. And that's where I've encumbered the food service equipment that wasn't funded by capital. So both the Foster shed wasn't funded by capital, and that's encumbered in this operating budget. And then the food service equipment wasn't funded by capital, and that's included in this budget. And that was based on a list that I made. It wasn't all the money that we had put in for capital, but a scaled version of what we would purchase and what type of order we'd purchase. So there's about $110,000 worth of food service equipment, which would include ovens for the schools, slice for the high school. I think PRS gets ovens too. I have a list, but of what that $109,000 is. And then also this year, because we sort of advanced the South School telephone system, we're getting a new phone system, and it is going to be installed. Everything should be installed within the schools by August 1st. But in order for this new phone system to work itself, we had to do rewiring. So the cost of that rewiring was another $32,000. So that money actually hit the other account, and it's impacting that the other negatively to show 177,000 negative variance. And lastly, the capital budget, I'm projecting a positive variance in the capital budget of about $30,000. That's primarily, we always get some roof money for roof repairs, so some of that money's going back. And then also, we've had other purchases during the year, and, some of those purchases may have come in a couple $1,000s less than what they were budgeted for. So all in all, when you put it all together, I'm anticipating, with all those things incorporated into this budget, that there is still approximately $524,000 to return to the town.
And I would talk a minute about the Special Ed Stabilization Fund. When the fund was set up and it was voted by a majority of this committee and by the selectmen and the advisory committee and also at town meeting, one of the thoughts of doing that this year was we did have that significant bump up in the circuit breaker funding for this year, a little over $1 million. And so as we worked on the special ed funding group, and Linda's here as part of that group as well, and Paul Gannon was on that group, we talked about it being unfortunate in a way that we might not be able to use some of that money that came to us this year to fund the account once we had it set up. So I had a couple individual conversations with folks, knowing that we were going to have an amount to return to the town, and knowing as well it was fairly significant, and knowing as well that it was largely there because the special ed costs were lower. So thought about whether or not there might be a way to take that money, which if given back to the town would simply drop to the reserve fund. Is there a mechanism at all? My first thought was perhaps there's a way that some of that money could go into a kind of a segregated part of the reserve fund. And so Ted gave me a 101 on how reserve funds work, and the bottom line is that if you have unexpended funding, there's really only two things that can happen to it. One is that up to 3% of it could get transferred through your vote to some other department. I don't think we're anticipating doing that. And then the only other thing that could happen is for it to drop to the general fund, and that we as a school committee would not have any way of segregating some dollars. And my feeling is something in the neighborhood of perhaps $200,000 is something that we can't do, you can't do with a single vote. However, what you can do is to petition the policymakers, and they would be the advisory committee and the selectmen, because they have the power to self-restrict the use of certain dollars. So one of the things that you could do is to petition the selectmen and the advisory committee to have a self-restriction on dollars that will be dropping to the bottom line, but that we could petition that they consider that some of those be, and 200,000 or whatever you might vote for that number to be, could then be allocated to that account once it's set up. So we had the town meeting vote, but now there's legislative action that will need to happen, and so it will be next spring when we would be looking to fund this money. And so there was that timing issue always when we had this account. I talked to Ted. I think that he thought that the idea had some merit, and that there would be people who would think positively about that at the Selectmen and Advisory Committee. Actually had discussions with a couple of Advisory Committee members individually who thought there was some merit in considering that. So I would put that out there. It's a decision that you'd have to make relatively quickly about petitioning. It would take votes by both of those bodies. But we do have this timing thing. If we do nothing, the amount falls to the bottom line. And those who set the town's financial policy, that's what I mean by the policymakers in this arena, do have the ability to segregate, if you will, or the phrase that Ted used was self-restrict dollars, certain of those dollars for a specific purpose. So I would ask you to give that some thought.
What's our timetable here?
Today?
Well, I'm not sure. I think that the money that we don't expend will drop to the bottom line. I don't think we can change that fact. I think that the issue is that there probably is not, and I'll clarify this again with Ted, there's not a date by which the advisory committee and the selectmen would have to act. Once the money is there, then they can self-restrict dollars that are in that. So I think that we do have time to look at that.
Well, Linda was on the committee, I was as
Yes,
well.
right.
And it was always my thought, the impression I had was that this was where the initial funding would come from. The dollar amount was always that elephant in the room. It was
Yeah.
never really talked about, but I think that was the intention, yeah. Yeah.
So, Linda, I know you're meeting June 24th.
Right.
And then probably not again until
Probably not again.
till August.
Probably not until August, but, I mean, it can be we don't have the specifics, we haven't talked. I mean, the advisory committee has not talked about
Right.
doing this. I think there's been some individual conversations about this probably
Yeah.
might be a good idea because it's exactly the process that we were trying to set up. It's excess sped dollars, it can be set aside for sped expenses.
Do you want to talk it over with Greg and Mary and see if there's an interest in putting it on the agenda for the 24th? Okay. We do have another meeting. There is another meeting that evening, but perhaps we could coordinate a time.
And we had played around the dates and moving around a little bit, but we're back to the 24th, so that probably was
And Paul, of course, was on the committee when he was representing the school committee at that point.
I think, yeah, again, I don't know if there's deadlines associated.
I think the,
We haven't really talked. There's been a lot of little preliminary discussions, but I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, probably anything we don't encumber by June 30th drops.
it will drop.
That's correct, yeah.
But I
So
don't
it would
think,
just be, I don't think there's a deadline per se. The summer is kind of an amorphous period of time where they, yeah,
Kind of a understanding.
right.
Does it make any sense for the committee to talk about what they want to do? Because maybe there is some consensus about,
well, I think that would be good to know there's consensus, that's a good thing to do, number one, or not. And number two, if there is consensus that this would be a good thing to do, what amount are we talking about?
Right.
When I say 200,000, remember, our goal is not to just accumulate monies without limit. Our goal is to set aside some money that could offset another bad year like we had 2 years ago, or even a year where we had significant deficit in terms of a drop in terms of the circuit breaker funding. We call them extraordinary circumstances, I think, in the piece of legislation. So it would be good to know that there's some interest here, a consensus of interest, and then what amount are you thinking about? Part of it is not wanting to accumulate large numbers of dollars, and that this fund could be funded over a period of years to get where we think we want to be. Part of it is still the thought that most of this savings is because of special education and that idea that the town has bailed us out in the
Right.
past, so letting some of that money drop naturally to where it would end up in the reserve fund is a good idea, and within the spirit of fair play, I guess I would call it.
And we did have a lot of discussion about the cap number.
Yeah.
And we came up with what was in the bill that's being worked through the legislative process. And we thought in order to be consistent, it made sense to use that phrase and put it in. And so we'll at least be consistent if the state bill would go through.
And that was, I think, the 2% figure, and I think when John calculated it way back last fall, when we first started talking about that, it was $700 or so thousand dollars was the
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Which we don't have to do.
Right.
It's just, at least we wanted to put a cap on it, so
Yeah.
everybody felt that there would at least be, would be accumulating money,
Yeah, I think that the 200 number is a fair number, because I think it represents one of the, one of the higher cost tuitions.
Of a single tuition.
Of a single tuition that we might encounter and we have encountered. So be interested to hear.
Once money drops, whatever that means,
Yeah.
does it stay dropped or can it be undropped?
No, well, see, the idea.
By town meeting.
Yeah.
By town meeting?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's
We would
it's
have
not
to
dry.
request reserved fund transfer, right? That's what, if
At
we
at
want.
the end of the year, Ed, when the money that you don't expend just reverts back to the
Right.
general fund, that's what dropped.
Right.
It's
Right.
not dropped, it
So I
just
think-
reverts back to
I
the
think
general.
the idea here is
Is it
that
gone?
this
It's
money.
done, yep,
Yeah,
it's, that your
okay.
fiscal year is closed out, that money returns back to the town, and then we start operating on a new budget.
But I think the idea here is that, if you recall from reviewing the fund balance worksheet that we've looked at before, okay? Some of fund balance is just generally allocated, and then some of it is restricted to certain line items. This, if advisory and the selectmen were to agree, this could be restricted so that it wouldn't be essentially part of the general bottom line, and that it could be then, if the legislation were to be approved, it could then be put into that account if it were created in a future date. That's what we're
Are you
talking about.
talking about legislation at the state level or legislation at the local level?
Well, there couldn't be local, it would be state, right? So there's a bill pending,
Yeah,
right?
okay,
If
yeah.
that bill doesn't go forward, then our home rule petition, which passed a town meeting, which we would then proceed with.
Right.
And that would allow us to set up the fund, but it would not have anything in it. And then the only way to put money in it would be to appropriate it at a town meeting, would be one way. To put it in next year's budget, for example, as part of the operating budget, would be another way. So this is still a third way.
If it's earmarked
that
ahead
has
of time,
some-
then
some merit, I think.
Andy?
I personally would go with the, if we have approximately 524,000, I would, since that is all a direct response to less special ed dollars spent, I would put it all in the special ed fund. I don't know what the exact word is if it goes through, because then we have a big bang theory. We have, I think we said 784 max. We have about, 60, 70% funded. The money's there this year, and we're off and we're ready to go. We don't have to really worry about adding to it each year. So I would put all the money into the special ed, I don't know what the exact word is, but that fund. So you guys said 200. The money's from special ed. It was earmarked for special ed education. Let's just put it all in that fund.
I don't disagree with the thinking. Just to be devil's advocate and to take the role of folks who might look at that and say, hey, wait a minute, the fact that we were able to return, $1 million last year really positioned the town well in what it was able to do right now. And I think if we were to earmark all of these dollars for something that would be kind of a what-if down the road and not at least have the benefit of some of it, then there were folks that probably wouldn't be too happy about that, because I think they...
Well, but, they do have the benefit of it down the road, because you now have a reserve fund of $500,000 for our special education needs. So it's that's why we're setting up. We have the money to fund it. Let's just fund it. And that's just my opinion. But, obviously, we have to get word back from advisory and stuff. But when you talk about the numbers, it came from special ed needs. I would just use it for it.
Anybody else?
I would disagree. That the spirit of the committee for the year and a half that I participated was not of that magnitude. We went everything from zero to probably $500,000, and I honestly think that the spirit of the committee was in the neighborhood of $250,000.
Then, if you say that, though, which is fine, since you're more involved than me, then why is the cap at 2% or 784,000?
That's some law that's
It's consistent with the
on the
state
books.
legislation.
That's Bill 1862, says 2% of the
At
budget.
no point did we ever consider doing that 2%. I thought it was 3%, but the number was the 700. At no point did we ever consider anything of that.
The only reason we use that language in it. It was to be consistent with the bill that is
Right.
now going through the legislature. And we felt that we have our home rule petition, but there is also at the same time a bill going through. And in that language was what we used in ours to be consistent with what was happening.
And it was a
So I don't
cap, it
think
wasn't
we
a
ever
goal,
had-
it was a cap.
And so, it was just to keep the two different pathways, consistent with each other.
I'm not to step on anybody's toes, I'd suggest 250,000. Broader number.
Anybody else have an opinion?
I think we should do what the maximum is reasonable, according to, if our town reserves are in good shape and we can take advantage of this opportunity now, let's do, what we can do under the thinking of the committee and be prepared and if it makes sense right now, let's be done with it and allows the rest of the town efforts to go on. So I guess I would agree with Ed's number, but I'd like to hear what advisory and selectmen think from the overall financial policy. But I think we should definitely do something.
I agree. I agree with Eliza and Ed. I think $250,000 is a reasonable amount.
Okay. I could agree with 250. I think that's reasonable.
I think that would be, if we were sitting on today, I think that would be palatable and would be acceptable, don't you, honestly?
Again, we haven't had any discussions, so.
No, I'm talking about the
But
group.
out of our working group, I think.
Yeah, I really do.
Was
That's a smell test.
consensus of where we thought it should be. But again,
Would we do we think the 524 number is firm?
I think it may grow.
Make grow, okay. I was gonna say,
We
what
get
about
small.
224 and then give the town $300,000? But if that number's gonna change.
Yeah. At the end, we'll have other POs that, will close. There, in the world of maintenance, we try to get POs as current as we can, but sometimes there's a PO, it's like I said, do the project, and we didn't have that money encumbered yet. So, in the next couple of weeks, there's still changes that could result, could impact these numbers.
So it seems like there is consensus to
do something.
do
Absolutely.
250, 200 to
Absolutely.
250. I would just want to, I guess I would want to let the town know as we're giving this money back that we intend to ask for that self-restriction. Even though we might not be doing it by June 30th. That's our intention.
I'll speak with Ted again tomorrow and find out exactly what the wording would be. Is there a timeline that's crucial? And Linda will speak with,
yeah, and I think we need to get clarification on if the money is in fund balance and is so-called restricted for this purpose. How can we get it out? I don't know if there's a mechanism to get it out. I'm not quite sure of the mechanics, so, but again, we can work that out, in our discussions. But I think, we can move forward with talking about this. It's a good time to do it. And hopefully we can find a way to make that happen.
okay, very good, thank you.
Thanks. You have in your packets,
Will we vote on this, or this is just a sense of direction, or?
we have a consensus, I
Okay.
think.
Everyone weighed in, so.
Yeah. The next item is the remaining, what we call FF&E, furnitures, fixtures, and equipment in the old middle school after principals have gone through already and claimed things for their respective schools. Town departments have gone through and done the same, and there's going to be a public sale, perhaps, I think on July 12th, or at least that's what we're talking about. So what we have here is an intention essentially to declare surplus everything that isn't being used by the district or the town, so we can dispose of it.
Yard sale.
The only question I would have for you, John, and in your packet there's a motion, if someone wants to make that, but the only question I would have here is, why would we make available to other municipalities free of charge when we would charge our own residents? I would not make it available to other municipalities free of charge if we're intending to charge our own residents in a yard sale.
Well, I think that the free of charge to other municipalities, that would come before the yard sale for the most part. It's like if they want it, let them take it.
Right, but could we get some value for it?
Well, with
Outside?
the state would get value for it. Would get put to good use. It gets rid of it with less administration and less problems. You know, I mean, the yard sale is going to be very, very tough. I mean, at the end with the yard sale, it's like, you know, give me $1, give me a quarter. I don't know where that's going to go, Ray. To be, you know, but
I hear you.
the municipalities, we can get rid of perhaps large quantities.
Yeah.
By them coming to remove it,
away.
Sure.
take it away from
Sure.
us. So we're actually saving money by allowing, you know, them to take it.
Is there much left?
Well, I know that there's one town that wants one charter school that wants whatever's left of our library furniture, you know, so.
Well, some of it's already at Foster School.
Yeah, some of it's already at Foster, but
Can you
they did,
imagine this?
they came, you know, they sort of looked at that, and it's a charter school, and it's like, well, once our town picks over and our people pick over, you know, the schools and the town people, then we'll set up a time where after school gets out, you can come get it, you know? And it helps us. I really think it helps us. We're on a short time frame
Yep.
here, and believe me, at the yard sale,
There'll be a lot of
Those
deals.
the
bargains.
answer is yes.
And you have to take it that day.
Right.
That's a
The answer is yes.
big restriction on the yard sale.
Can we
You
bring
gotta-
some of our own stuff?
Bring your pennies.
You'll be amazed, though, people want to come and peel a, you know, a tile off the, well, we don't want to take it on the floor, because
Yeah,
that
that needs to be right,
needs
yeah.
to be abated, but
Right.
they'll want to take pieces of things as memorabilia and that kind of thing.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Okay, everybody hold on to their seats here. To declare surplus all furniture, fixtures, equipment, supplies, and other structural elements from the old middle school that will not be repurposed within the Hingham Public Schools or within the town of Hingham, and authorize the Director of Business and Support Services to dispose of such surplus goods by any means necessary, including but not limited to making such goods available to other municipalities free of charge, vendor buybacks, yard sales, auctions, recycling, demolition, or my favorite, trash disposal. Funds received in excess of expenses associated with the disposal shall be deposited with town treasurer into the town's general fund.
See, there are more dollars going right to that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you,
Any
Ed.
discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Makes it pretty final sounding, doesn't it? All things remain.
John, you gonna have a list of some of the goodies?
Forever.
Come to that.
What you gotta see is what you,
With your truck.
Not coming to my house, that's all I can say.
okay, the next item as we move along. So the High School Rowing Association has donated another new rowing shell to the town. It's been named the Herbert Foss. As you know, I think they did this last year as well. So, and it makes sense because we carry the insurance
That's correct.
Right.
for the shells.
Gotta do it.
Yeah.
But timing is everything, as we agonized the last meeting to do some help
For the
with
$2,800, yes.
trip.
It was appreciated.
Yeah. We may have had a different idea had we had this donation last time.
And I think they finished fourth in the
Do you need a
nation.
motion? Or are you good? It
No.
says to act.
Do we need to? Do we need to,
You just want to accept the gift. I mean, this is over 25,000, so I think
Yeah,
the
that's
committee
right.
should accept it.
Yes.
You know?
All right, so I'd like to make a motion that we accept the gift of a rowing shell to the Hingham Public Schools from the Hingham Rowing Association.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Field trip being planned to Japan next year, kind of a reciprocal action of the Great Kanoji visit this year. That'll be exciting to hear about. We have a retirement, a couple of retirements, resignation, a new appointment. Any other 48-hour items, excuse me? Okay, subcommittee and project reports. So we should talk about the middle school ribbon cutting. We started talking about a date and building committee. It's hard for us to pick dates, obviously. And we were talking about later in August, right?
Yeah, if we followed what we did at the East School, which I think worked well, we had the formal ribbon cutting late one afternoon in late August, about the week before everybody started back. And that was the one to which we invited people from the School Building Authority and the town bodies and groups and so on. But then, since not everybody could come on any particular date, particularly one during the day, on a weekday, we also opened the building on, I think it was 2 Saturdays in the fall for maybe 4 hours, and just had a big open house where people could simply come and wander about. There weren't formal tours, but people there to answer questions. And so it gave an opportunity for the whole community to see what we had accomplished and what they had accomplished with their dollars. And I think modeling that would be a good way to go for this.
Yeah.
But MSBA particularly is looking for a date because, as you can imagine, all the schools they're building, or most of them are
Well, did
opening with school.
Did they, I thought Mary said that they like to be notified and
They
then
do,
figure out,
yeah.
did they not, they didn't come to the ribbon cutting for the East, did they?
I don't remember that
Yes,
they
they
did.
did. I remember.
Yeah.
Mary was there.
They were there at the ribbon cutting? You remember
No,
they were there at the...
School Building Authority.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
there.
really?
Oh, okay. I don't
Yeah.
remember that. I remember that they were there for the...
I don't remember.
The shovel in the ground. The ground breaking, but...
Because I walked back to my car with Mary.
Okay, so... But there will be a lot of those. There are a lot of new schools that are opening up this fall, so, they want to get something on the record anyway for the formal part. And then we can do what we want if we wanted to offer some other opportunities for citizens to come in and look.
So are we looking for dates now?
Yes.
The Wednesday or Thursday before Labor Day?
It's impossible to say.
Or the,
Well, that's already, teachers are already back.
Okay.
teachers are back as of the week of the 25th. So,
It probably should be the week before that.
week before that,
So the 20th or 21st?
So we have a school
Or the
committee
20
meeting on the 20th.
could be on the
During
23rd was one suggestion that had been thrown out by Mary and Roger as a possibility. East School, I know, was a late afternoon, but doesn't have to be.
23rd, I'm not here.
Yeah, it's a bad weekend.
I'd rather during the week.
Yeah, I'm more for the middle of the week.
Well, if we have school, do we want to try to do it on the 20th?
During the day?
Yeah, like a 3 o'clock or something like that? Is that too late in the day?
I don't think so. We did it at East School, it was late afternoon. I think it was
Okay.
3 o'clock or something.
The marathon day.
Well, could we then just have our first school committee meeting right afterwards, starting at 4?
The middle school.
We
Just
could.
get everything done?
We could.
Good idea.
We could do that.
Yeah,
We don't
that's
even
not a
need
bad
a
idea.
reason. Yeah, no, we can do that.
So,
Not a bad idea.
and since there's going to be champagne there, it might even be more effective.
I knew there was a reason why we had you around, Andy.
Hey, Andy.
We could do that. Cater it.
Okay. Is
That's a
that
ribbon cutting.
going to be good for the school?
The 20th,
The 20th, okay.
3 o'clock, and then we'll meet after.
Yeah, let's hold on the time to see
Yeah.
whether we can
Yeah.
get someone there, but that it would, the plan would be to meet late in the afternoon and,
And I have to coordinate with the school building committee, too.
Yeah.
So,
right.
all right.
And our, when do we next meet with the building? Well, the 24th, but it's not on the agenda to discuss
about
that,
it.
but we can. Okay,
Okay.
good.
Well, while we're talking about dates.
Yeah. Right. So we had scheduled the 24th for our planning meeting, but that's not good for Andy.
Right. That's go out of state.
What is it?
Trying to do a planning
We've done the
session.
24th.
We had a plus or minus on Sunday, the 24th.
So I have other dates that both Dennis forwarded that, knowing this discussion might come up, that he would be available since he's not here tonight, and also Andy is here to speak for his dates, but,
And Carol's now here to speak for her dates.
Yeah.
yeah.
So what was the date you were looking at?
Well, we looked at the 24th, but that is not good for Andy, so.
We looked at
That was
basically every
just-
day in August,
Yeah.
every weekend.
Weekend.
So,
Right, because the week before that, Liza, you were away?
I'm away the 9th to the 16th.
Right,
And I was away the 17th through the 19th.
right.
what about that first Saturday after Labor Day?
I would prefer that.
Hmm?
The first Saturday after Labor Day is better for me.
Labor Day is the 1st this
Monday
year?
the 1st, yeah.
To September 6th?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that.
And what's the following Saturday after that? The 6th?
13th.
13th.
What about the 7th? September 7th, the Sunday?
Once we get,
That bad?
yeah, once September starts, it's going to be very hard.
What about the 21st? August 21st, the day after? When, Andy, when are you leaving? Are you doing the college thing?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't bought the tickets, I just know that's the moving weekend, and everything. I mean, the 21st of August,
The Thursday.
I think Ray was, or someone else, I'm not gonna say Ray, other people, because I said I could easily do like a Friday morning all through the summer or Monday, and I think there was some consensus that people didn't want to do it during the work week.
Mm-hmm.
This is my recollection.
Well, it's,
I mean, we used to do these in the past, we never had a full group. I mean, it's impossible to schedule.
well,
Well-
we've only done 2.
Yeah.
No, this would be our third, right?
This would be our third. So
Yeah.
we did October 15th, and then, no, we did September 15th, then we did the October date.
We've had everybody the 2 years that we've been here.
We have people in and out.
Yeah.
We have people leaving early, coming
Yeah.
later.
Coming in.
It's true.
Why are we pushing it to August? That seems impossible.
Well, I think it might be impossible, but, because everybody seems to be on vacation and have college.
Well, we
things.
started with September, and that was
Impossible.
difficult with fall activities starting up, so then we moved to August, and here we are, still looking.
What about so Sunday morning in September, is that, what about a Friday morning in September? I don't know what people's work schedules are.
I'm working on it.
I can figure it out.
Yeah, we do that.
Is July just something that's out of the question?
I think it's
It's
too
too
soon
early.
for these guys.
Dr. Gall said she
Got it.
could.
Well, we need to
Okay.
spend July getting ready, although people have vacations in July.
If we are gonna
too.
do it a Friday
Yeah.
in September, I'd rather just book it for the 5th, because that's like the first week of school, and I know it's after Labor Day, it's a short week. I know I'm more likely to be around.
You know when your kids are going?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll do my best to get there. That's fine.
Friday, September 5th, what time?
Well, when we were going to meet on Sunday, we were going to meet from 8 to noon, so I would think if we were going to meet on Friday, it would be no later than that.
Fine.
Yeah, I think I could.
That work for you?
Yeah.
Good.
Oh. I'm looking for Dennis's list, because we,
Oh, no.
shoot. Somewhere I have it.
So I'm going to pull up his email.
Okay, here we go. So, if it needs to move to a September weekend, he is available on the 13th, 14th, 21st, or 28th in September.
So that's a weekend. He doesn't.
It doesn't,
Well, how about we schedule it tentatively
so he
and then we
doesn't
talk
say
about
that
it
he
again
can't
in
do
July?
that, but,
Right.
but he also doesn't list it as one of the dates that he can.
So if he's around, I mean, I could also do it the following weekend, the 12th, if he can't do.
Is the 12th easier, Carol, for taking kids to school?
Usually they're back by then. Yeah, I'm just trying to Google it and see where.
So,
The college kids would be back, it's the high school
He-
class.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's,
Right.
they all go different times.
is the 12th better than the 5th, or no?
12th is the first home football game for any of you who are going to that, but you'd be out by then.
Is there a religious holiday on the 12th?
I don't have my, I just don't
I
have
really
my-
can't.
I'm just,
How about we stick with the
calendar
5th,
does
and we'll
have
use the 12th as an
holidays
alternate?
on it.
Yeah, and we'll see in July. We can, if we need to move it, we need to move it. You
Really,
know.
all we need to do is check with Dennis,
Yeah.
and then, well, Carol can get her dates.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you get the 5th and the 12th of September.
good.
Okay. I'll email Dennis tomorrow.
Okay. 5th?
5th. All right, back to
Yeah.
10.2.
Real quickly, so the building committee is meeting on the 24th at 7:30 to discuss the possibility of installing artificial turf at the middle school. It's something that I've been approached by hundreds of people in the last several months about this. People have approached the selectmen. I've had discussions with each of the selectmen individually, and all three of them are in favor of it. And I'll be meeting with members of advisory as well to discuss it. And the building committee has discussed it and not made a decision about it, but we'll discuss it on the 24th and see if we want to move forward. PAR Corporation, who is the civil engineer on the project, has put together four options, essentially. And they're putting together a presentation. And so we'll hear that, we'll discuss it, and decide whether it makes sense to move forward. You know, the middle school project is significantly under budget, so this would be paid for out of the contingency that's available. And there is, obviously not everything is known at this point because we're still looking at demolition, and but based on what we expect, there will be significant contingency left, and this would be covered, be paid for under that, with still plenty of savings left in the project. So we'll discuss it on the 24th and see whether the group thinks it makes sense to move forward with.
I did confirm today with cable that they will be available to
Oh, good.
take the program.
Ray, does this project, is this a notice, or is this something that ultimately would require the school committee,
The school committee has no role.
Building committee.
Building committee.
Yeah, it's part of, it's, the funding is under the warrant article from the special town meeting in October of 11 that appropriated the 60, 910, 920 for the project, and not that the building committee would spend up to that amount, but it has the authority to spend up to that amount for that project. So feel free to come.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead,
I'm
Carol.
sorry.
You had a question?
Is there any idea of an estimate yet, or anything of what the program costs? I mean, I've heard different things floated, is there any idea yet, or?
No, we'll talk about that on the 24th.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have specifics on the numbers with me tonight.
So, Ray, I can't be there on the 24th. I
Yeah.
had a couple questions.
Yeah.
So, the turf field is it's an addition to what the original plan for the school is.
Would be a substitution of natural grass for artificial turf.
But the planning board, conservation, zoning, they already approved the plans for the regular grass
Right.
field. I guess, for me, this is a little out of scope of what the original plan was presented to town meeting. So I think back to the building committee when East School was being finalized, and I was involved with, we opened school and we realized the playground was extremely small and inadequate, and the PTO was going to fund it themselves to get a new playground, additional playground space, but the building committee said, well, that's out of scope. The plan's done, planning board already approved, zoning board already approved, and they had contingency, and they said, nope, we're not changing the scope of the plan. And so it surprises me now to come up with a turf field, which, it's out of the scope of the plan.
Well, it's not really, so let me the phrasing isn't quite right. So it's not out of the scope because the full scope of the project and detailing the athletic fields was really never presented, because what was approved at town meeting was a warrant article that authorized a sum of money to build a new middle school under the MSBA's model school program. And it didn't go into detail about the athletic facilities or the fields. And when we designed it, the fields were kind of an afterthought and not something we spent a whole lot of time on, except for when we did value engineering and cut things like basketball courts, which were originally in the design. The existing school had fields before, so the intention was that the new school would have fields as well. But there wasn't a whole lot of time spent on specifically what they would be, just they would be essentially what they were before. So there was no detail presented at all, and like I said, we did some value engineering and the design was refined over time. East School was a little different. I think they ended up about $800,000 under budget at the end. We're significantly more than that under budget. And, not that that's necessarily a reason to go out and spend money, because that's not what the thinking is. But there's some that feel, and certainly many, many, many people who've approached me see this as an opportunity for the town to provide an additional playing surface without really spending any other money than what the town was already expecting to spend for the project. And if you talk to Ted Alexiadis, he'll tell you that he's not going to borrow any less just because we come in under budget. So, I don't get involved in those financial decisions, but if that's what, he's telling me and the selectmen are telling me, then, the impact to the taxpayer won't be any different if we spend a little bit more money and get a turf field, which will essentially give us, greater utility and serve the community better.
I guess I would add to that me personally as a taxpayer, I see that contingency. If now the decision is to, that contingency would come back unless it's spent on emergency overage. And now if there's a decision of, well, we want to use that money for a different type of recreation to benefit the town, one, I would like to see, and I've asked one of the selectmen, that I'd like to see the town do a master plan of all of our fields, so we have a real sense of what is the full inventory of fields that we have, how are they used, what's the maintenance of them we need, and then if we realize we need a turf field, an additional turf field, we can look at that, but also look at what other recreation needs do we have in town. And we've had the rowing people come to us that they would like to have a boathouse down at the wharf. I've heard people say, we should have a pool, and can we bubble the country club? Could we build another pool? Do we want our own hockey rink? Do we want to move the rec center to Hingham Mutual Insurance? And to me, those are all recreation wants and needs in our town that, we just got a turf field, and we're still figuring out how that all works and all the usage for it. And I just think we really need to balance and make sure we take a lot of time. I don't know if we have the time. So I just think we really need to think this out and not rush into it, because to me it's significant dollars, and the town has a lot of, say, recreation wants and needs that we need to have the whole town consider.
Yeah. Well, those are great points. We couldn't build a boathouse at the middle school. We couldn't use these funds for any of those other items.
But it could go back to the town.
No, it's not money that.
The taxpayer.
Liza, it's not money that we have that can go back to the town. It's money that you could argue we wouldn't borrow, but I've already been told that we're going to borrow it anyway.
Because we can get such a good rate.
That's right.
Right. That's what Ted's.
So if we're going to borrow it anyway, and we have an opportunity to provide, the fact of the matter is, the high school fields project, the ad hoc committee spent months talking about the possibility of a second field there, and then scrapped the idea because permitting for it was going to be too challenging. That was really the only idea why it was scrapped, okay? And there were a lot of people behind that because there was a real need for fields. And I've talked to the selectmen as well, and I agree that we need to look at town-wide facilities in kind of a master plan way. But we don't need a master plan today to tell us that we need more playable fields. Margaret mentioned it earlier tonight. This spring was ridiculously bad weather-wise. There was a 10-day period, I think, in April where there was no playable field in town except for the turf at the high school, okay? And the baseball team used the turf at the high school because they couldn't play on any baseball field. So that surface, gym classes at the middle school, when it rains in the morning and it stops, the field's all wet. Kids can't go outside and play on a grass field that's all wet. They can go out and play on a turf field, even after it rains. So there's tremendous utility there for middle school students, for town sports groups, for high school teams as well. So it's just an opportunity to use money that's already been appropriated, already been allocated.
I don't think there's any question, and it was always the intention of putting athletic fields at the middle school once the project was finished. I'm going back to the ad hoc, other people who are on that group, they can pipe in. But you're going to get 750 plays a year on an artificial field versus 215 on a grass field. It's going to take you a good season and a half and maybe 2 seasons for the grass to grow in. You need a field, and that was always the intention at the middle school. I want to see some ideas, but I think it's a great idea. And I think it absolutely is something that we should look into.
Andy?
So, quick question. Whitman Hanson's, that's who we're modeled after?
The school, yeah.
Yeah. Did they put a synthetic field there?
I don't know.
Okay. And then secondly,
so.
What's the time?
But I do know that Marshfield, for instance, and not the model we're based on, but just an example of a school through the model school program that's being built at the same time, that wasn't a school project with athletic fields. It was an athletic field project with a school thrown in.
And he did 2 in Marshfield.
That's right.
But did those fall under the model school program or no?
No, the fields were outside of it, but the fields were more important to them than the schools.
Okay. All right, so I guess there's a question which you don't know off the top of your head, which would expect, where any of the model schools programs have synthetic, but that was just my first question. Second question is, what's the timing? So, I mean, we're taking down the building. When we did our tour the other day, they said that they have that done by November 1st.
Well, it's still up in the air. The original under the construction contract now, they're scheduled to finish the bus loop and that site work, associated site work by Thanksgiving. That doesn't mean all of the athletic fields will be done by then. Under the current contract, it's the spring of 2015 that all of that site work is to be finished.
Okay.
Now, the contractor wants to accelerate that, and that's why we're starting with demolition of the gym on June 30th, and the rest of the school probably mid-July, second week, third week in July. And they want to move quickly and deliver us the bus loop so we can have it for the opening of school, which would be tremendous. Okay? Then the athletic fields will come after that. And Ed made a great point. They'll plant those, and as you saw how slowly the grass grows, at the high school, we wouldn't be able to use those until earliest fall of 2015, more likely spring of 2016.
But so say you went with the synthetic field, when would that be ready? Probably not till spring of 15?
They could finish it in the fall, and there's a chance it could be ready in late fall, but more likely early spring.
The only reason why I bring that up is I love turf fields, AstroTurf fields, synthetic fields. I think they're wonderful. I think they give you a lot of utility. I'm just more concerned of the process, and if this is something, and especially since it took us 20-odd years to get where we were, if we're already butting up against town meeting, I don't know what's going to happen at our meeting here on the 24th. But if it's something that would be better to, because I think we wouldn't slam dunk. I think if you went to a town meeting, I think it'd be a slam dunk that people would support it. So I just favor the process of making it more transparent.
Well, we are making it transparent. We've posted the meeting in several places. It's being.
But are you saying that? But in terms of transparent and everything, you are being transparent because of the meeting. But are you saying that if the building committee votes, whatever it is, unanimously to put in a synthetic field, that's a done deal? There's no, if hypothetically you did go to a town meeting and it was shot down, do you have the authority to do that without any?
Yeah, we don't need to go to town meeting. Town meeting's already given us the authority.
No.
And I've
You're not
consulted.
suggesting, Andy, a special town meeting or
No,
anything.
we don't need that. I consulted with council on it.
No, I'm just saying that I don't know what's going to come out of this meeting. I do like I like things being signed off for, even if it delays us a little bit and we go to town meeting, and
Well, we would, to Liza's point, we would need to go back to the planning board
okay.
to amend site plan approval, and we would need to go back to the Conservation Commission. But this project was permitted under the Dover Amendment, so it can't be denied, it can only be conditioned.
Okay. It's late, I can only digest so much stuff.
I mean, and I don't know how the building committee will decide. You know, we've talked about it twice, and there are mixed feelings about it. You know, and the reason why I brought it up initially was because so many people had approached me about it. I've talked to Margaret about it. Margaret is excited about the idea.
Oh, listen, I've always been, from the get-go, we've talked about this. I've always wanted, after this one got up, I always liked the idea. I'm just more about making sure that people don't get their you know, that it's just done above, yeah, so.
Absolutely.
Who runs the meeting on the 24th?
Excuse me?
So do you run?
It's a building committee, yeah.
It's a building committee meeting, okay.
It'll be in the big room over there.
Give and take from the audience?
Oh, yeah. It'll be posted again this week. It's already been on the website. There are folks in the community who are socializing it. So the hope is that we get a good turnout and folks have questions or comments.
And building committee has representatives from selectmen, right, and advisory?
No.
Who was appointed?
So building committee is, yes, building committee
appointed,
was appointed by moderator, selectmen, and school committee.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's a good representative.
Yes. And it's five of the 7 are the original appointees from 2006, and there are 2 new appointees.
Wow, it's a long time.
I know, they're going to be glad to have this done.
The DPW building committee served for, I think, 9 years. Yeah.
We've had audience in here a long time. Was anyone staying for this issue? If you don't mind me
Go
asking
right
if
ahead.
anybody had a question or?
No? Anyone? Cynthia? Yeah, just so they can capture it better. I don't know if anyone heard Linda earlier. I know the camera goes there, but I don't know how the audio picks up.
Cynthia Galkin, 45 Lincoln Street. Just a question, how much extra surplus is there?
It's hard to determine. So first, the bid came in approximately 2.5 million under the appropriation from town meeting. So there's 2.5 million right there. So take that aside. So beyond that, there's 2.5 million of contingency in the budget. Of that 2.5 million, I believe there's a little bit over 600,000 that's earmarked for change orders and items that the MSBA deems non-reimbursable. So what's that? About $1.8 million, $1.9 million left in contingency.
Okay, so then the idea is that because the rates are so low, we're going to borrow the entire amount.
I don't know the answer to that. I know what I've been told, and that, so if you remember when we went to town meeting in 2011, you know, there was a tax impact calculation done. And, you know, Ted said, or advisory committee said, okay, based on the 60 million, 910, 920, okay, that you approve, this is what the tax impact is going to be for the anticipated net cost to Hingham, right, for the average taxpayer, okay? The model of those numbers has never changed in 3 years, and I've talked to Ted about that, and he said, oh, yeah, we don't change those numbers. I said, but the bid came in 2.5 million under.
Right, yeah.
So the number already changed just a few months after town meeting. He said, yeah, I know, but we don't change the numbers. I said, well, then what if we come in even more under that with the contingency? He said, we don't change it. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, and they just went out and refinanced the bonds about 3 weeks ago, I want to say. Got another, and again, they're taking a risk of sorts because they're doing short-term borrowing, 1-year notes, but they got the lowest interest rate ever, like 0.11%, ridiculous low for 1-year bonds. And, you know, I had a couple discussions with Ted about it, and he has said that, you know, regardless of how far under budget, that we may still borrow, you know, what we intended to borrow 3 years ago, and maybe use some of that money to pay down the principal sooner, or use it for some other capital items. I don't know.
Okay, so that was really my question. What's going to happen to the money if we're borrowing it anyway?
Right. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
And that's why you know, and this, I wasn't the one who started this. People have come to me and suggested this and said, hey, you know, how much could this cost? We just went through it with a high school. How much more could it actually be? What's the benefit? What's the town going to do with the money that we're under budget? And, you know, my response is, I don't know, but frankly, if we have an opportunity to provide something in this project, I'd rather see it go to this than go into the savings account and used for I don't know what. Or maybe there's an opportunity for something else, I don't know, but, you know, we can only control money for this project. We can't control what the town does with it after we're done with the project.
Oh, I'm fully aware. My question is, from a perception point of view, not everyone gets all of those little nuances. So from the town perception point of view, you know, I think most people think, okay, it comes in under budget, therefore $2.5 million goes back in the general fund, therefore my taxes don't go up as high. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but that's going to be the perception. So if then the school building committee says, oh, but we figured we'd just use some extra money and do a turf field, which obviously is a hot button topic based on the last few years of discussions. You know, I'm just saying, there's going to be a perception issue.
Sure.
So,
I mean, actually, the turf wasn't really that controversial an issue. It was the lights.
well,
and
but
the
it
sound.
has been from Ward Field, you know, which is in a
Different
similar
place.
area as the middle school.
Yeah, but
Similar-
this isn't in the middle of wetlands, and but you're
Yeah, there's
it's
going to
fair
be a
point.
perception issue.
Yeah.
So that was really my question: was what's going to happen with all that extra money? And I guess clarifying that would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be extra money that we have that would then go into savings or be used for something else. It would be theoretically money that we wouldn't borrow, except I've already been told that we likely will borrow it anyway.
So, got it. All right. Well, thank you.
And again, you know, I would say, and we mentioned East School before, so that I think was about $800,000 under budget. If we were only $800,000 under budget or something like that, I would tell people, you're crazy. We can't afford to do this, okay? But because we're, you know, $4 million plus under budget right now, I think it's something that is worth exploring.
Well, right, just be careful because it's been announced that, you know, the project is now $58 million. I mean, that's the number in people's heads. So even though town meeting may have passed the 60, there have been statements made, it was in one of the annual reports, that the project is now 58
I know, I
whatever
wrote
million
that.
Right. So you've told people that that's the value of the project.
Yeah.
So just, you know, make people have that in their head as the most recent number of the project. So.
Well, I think that's the opportunity for the meeting on the 24th to the issue. You should come and raise those issues,
Yeah.
and people should speak up and.
Will Ted be at the meeting? Because I
Will Ted
think
be
he should
there?
answer those questions.
I don't know.
It's
I'll
important
ask
for Ted
him.
to be there,
He should be there
I'll ask him.
to answer some questions.
for so many reasons.
Yeah, I know.
Looking for, just to be sure, it's for 2.5 million under budget plus 1.8 million.
I you know, we're talking about numbers. I don't have my spreadsheet in front of, I don't have a budget in front of me, or my spreadsheet in front of me. I'm talking about kind of general round figures. The number I can confirm is that we were approximately 2.5 million under the bid, under the budget based on the bid, and that you have written about 15 times in the last 2.5 years, so that's not news to anybody.
And the other number really is we have not begun abatement or demolition.
Right.
So, and that's the reason for the timing. I heard someone say the other day, oh, well, why are you waiting till the last minute? Well,
Don't know.
until we get to what could be an expensive part of the project, when you get into the ground and find unknowns, wouldn't have been appropriate to even consider it at that point.
So we did talk about it briefly in December, and it was decided that it was premature because we weren't getting closer to the end of construction, getting close to demolition, and even though we've identified a very limited amount of environmental remediation that's going to need to be done, we don't know what we're going to find when we open up this old school. So, you know, as we're getting closer, I mean, demo of the gym is scheduled for June 30th. So we're 2 weeks off from that. So we're getting very close to that. So we figured, okay, let's talk about it again. considering, you know, a lot of folks have come forward and asked about it. So it's being explored. Building committee will talk about it, see if it makes sense to move forward. And then there's still steps, right? There's still planning board and Concom to go through. And
the middle school to take down.
exactly.
And I think with that, people are going to be here and here on this issue. There's not going to be any middle. And so there will be criticism no matter what. If the building committee, and building committee talked about this a lot last week, if the building committee were to say, we don't even care what people think, we're not going to consider it at all, there would have been criticism about that. On the other hand, when you bring up the topic, then there will be the people who say, well, any money that is unexpended should not be borrowed, and that should benefit the town as a whole rather than those who want to vote. So in a sense, all of you, but mainly the building committee, is going to get criticism, big-time criticism, no matter what. And certainly my feeling is that we have a duty to put it out there, to find out what people think and in what kind of proportion or balance, and then to move forward with what seems to come from the Monday night meeting and other feedback as kind of the will, some measure of the will of the town.
Anything else on that? High school field ceremony?
So as Ed mentioned earlier, we're going to be...
What was that date?
September 20th, 2014. We're going to be having our celebration event of the new Fields project, and we have a full lineup of girls field hockey and girls soccer. And we're having a dedication of the POW MIA chair. We're sort of sprinkling our events throughout the day. And then we have a soccer game. We're going to have a small reception. Then we're moving on to let's see, we have another boys soccer match. And then we'll have a opening ceremony on the field before the football game around 2:45. So, and then that will be followed by the football game. So it'll be a marathon session for everybody. It's going to be a fun day, lots of entertainment and speakers, and hopefully awesome weather.
Pray for good weather.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, that's great. Are we still going to have the executive session?
It's up to you and
Wait, one, can
Yeah.
I just invoice, I have a field invoice and a part change order
Yeah.
we should consider?
Yeah. That's Rad's invoice, right?
No, it's Chesia Consulting Services.
You didn't get Rad's invoice?
Didn't show up, no.
Okay. Better off.
But there's two of them here.
So I'll try to.
This one was stuck to one of the other ones. And then the part change order for project management services.
Yeah. Right.
I think the funding, I mean, for the funding.
there's another one if you want to take one for something else.
For the building revolving, I think. Appropriate for that.
Okay. Just real quickly, there are two invoices for the fields. One is Chesia Consulting. He's the peer review for the Concom and the Planning Board. This is from October.
You just received it, though, May.
Yeah. This is for attending a meeting in October. $212.50. Jeez. And the other is for PAR Corporation. And this is essentially a requested change order to the contract for project management services. There's still a number of things that need to be closed out and followed up on that Tom Perry continues to work on with RAD on site doing its kind of overseeding, split seating, replacing and repairing landscaping. There was some minor things to close out the concession building, which is now done. Making sure that the parking lot drainage is working properly, and there's just a number of things.
Punch list.
And we were, exactly, finishing up the punch list. There's the bleacher painting, and in talking with Par Corp, they were pretty much right up against the not-to-exceed number for their project management contract. And, there've been a lot of instances that I know of over the last few months where Tom Perry has probably hidden some of his time and not billed what he should have.
I mean, I've called him on our celebration event, and Ben is here, and as has Ed.
So this is an authorization for a change of $10,000, not to exceed $10,000, to close out the Fields project for project management services. And I think it's appropriate under the circumstances. We can cover it through the field donation account.
Either field donation or the building revolving, I think would be appropriate, because, I mean, the only reason they butted up against this timeline was because of the concession.
The building took so long.
So, I mean, it seems appropriate
Finalizing the
that
floor issue, and just really ridiculous.
And the tough winter, it just extended
I'm going to make a
everything.
motion for payment to Chesia Consulting Services LLC of the amount of $212.50. And should we do it separately? We'll do it separately. So motion for Chesia first. Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
And secondly, for a change order in the amount
Not to exceed.
not to exceed $10,000 to Par Consulting Company.
A second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
I'll sign.
Okay. If nothing else, take a motion to adjourn to executive session.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to executive session, not to return to public session, for the purpose to discuss contract negotiation strategies with HEA Unit A and not.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Individually.
Thank you.
We should go to my office so that he can
You want to sign?
clean up the room.
Get those finished so we don't lose sight of those.
Well, see, you made the first one back.